Cars roll off of pit road down into turn one. Here's the starting lineup for the Musket 250. Chase Dowling, of course, set a fast time in qualifying yesterday with a speed of 129.344 miles per hour. He'll start from the pole. And our current point leader and multi-time winner in 2018 starts alongside in the 51, Justin Bonsignor.
Inside of row number 2, regular on the race champion circuit, Patrick Emmerling in car number 07. And to his outside in Kevin Stewart's 85, that is Ron Silk.
The number 2 grids in the 5th spot. Doug Kobe, the defending champion of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. He'll start alongside Hampstead, New Hampshire's Andy Seiss in the 57.
One of 2 racing Solomito brothers, Timmy in the Flamingo Motorsports number 16, will go off in the 7th position. And Burt Myers of Madhouse fame in the 11 car goes off in 8th.
The 9th starting spot goes to John McKennedy in the number 7. He'll start next to Old Blue, number 3, and that's driven by Matt Swanson out of Acton, Mass.
Always a favorite at this racetrack. Car number 44 for the Tino brothers. That's Bobby Santos III. And to his outside, Rob Summers in the 64.
Tommy Catalano starts next in the 54, and 14th starting spot to Ronnie Williams in the number 21.
Craig Lutz in the 46 will go off 15th, and in the 16th starting position, Jeff Rocco in the 1 car.
17th is Woody Pitcat in the 82, then Dave Zappienza 18th in the 36.
Car number 14 for Blake Barney will go off 9th, with Ryan Preece taking over for Gary Putnam in the 77. That car will have to drop to the rear.
21st is the 75 of Chris Pastriak, and 22nd, the 92 of Anthony Nocella.
Calvin Carroll goes off next in the 25 car alongside Eric Goodale in the 58th and 24th.
25th starting spot, Ken Hagee in the 18, and 26th to Todd Cooper in the 97.
Behind Cooper, Jamie Tomeno, the ageless one, in car number 99. And to his outside, Gary McDonald in the 26.
29th starting spot goes to Dave Salzarulo in the number 38. And Wade Cole in the number 33. And the 31st starting spot to Melissa Fifield in the 01. That's your starting lineup for today's Musket 250, the history-making race, ready to go 250 laps. And as we get ready for that, let's go back to Joe Koss.
Pete, a 250-lap distance for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour is unprecedented for these teams. It's going to be a wild event. $186,000 purse, $50,000 on the line for the winner of today's event. But nobody has run this distance here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and so there's a lot of different strategies that are at play here. Different engine combinations, different mechanical combinations underneath these race cars that we'll talk about throughout the afternoon, and a $100 lap leader bonus for every time the race leader crosses the start-finish line throughout the 250-lap distance here today. For the modifieds, this is where it all stands. This is the place where you've got to win if you want to put your name in the history books of modified racing, and all these guys are going to put it out on the line here today. It's going to be a very busy day. We'll run in 2 segments today. We'll see a competition caution around lap 100. We'll see green flag pit stops and a lot of tire changes. Going to be a fun day here, guys, as we embark on history today in the Musket 250.
Yes, the modifieds never disappoint here, Joe, at New Hampshire, and we're about to witness it again in a much bigger race, much bigger paying race, as the lights are off on the pace car, leading them down into turn 3. Chase Dowling, with the biggest pole of his career this weekend at New Hampshire, will lead them to the green. And the dream season for Justin Bonsignor in the number 51 continues. He'll start outside of the front row. Bob Slade is the starter, and he looks them over as they make their way down the front stretch. Green flag is in the air, and the Musket 250 is underway.
Chase Dowling quickly jumps out in front. Patrick Emmerling going to follow him through on the inside now. And tries to make the move pass on Justin Bonsignor. That's not going to happen. Bonsignor powers off of turn number 2. He'll hold on to the second spot, pull up right against the rear bumper of Chase Dowling, and the bump drafting begins.
Yeah, and that will be very common throughout this race, as they actually do use the bump draft here on these cars. 2 of them hooked together, nose to tail, can get away a lot faster than a single car run, and that's what's happening up front. Chase Dowling taking Justin Bonsignor with him, but Ron Silk stays within striking distance in that number 85, and Patrick Emmerling follows in the 4th spot in the 07.
Ron Silk has driven any number of race cars at this racetrack. Always very, very fast. Loves racing here. Does very well here. Silk up into the third position behind Bonsignor and Dowling. Emmerling in the fourth spot and rounding out the top five. That's Doug Kobe in car number 2.
Yeah, they're all settling in now to set their pace for the long distance of this race. Chase Dowling continues to lead, and remember, with every lap, it's $100 to the driver of that car, and Chase Dowling obviously not thinking about that right now. He's thinking about all the other competitors that are lined up behind him, trying to get a shot for the lead as he'll lead yet another lap across the stripe. Dowling with Bonsignor, Silk, Emmerling, and Doug Kobe runs in the 5th spot.
Jeff Rocco and Eddie Harvey's potent number 1 with a big move as he tries to pick up spots back in the middle part of the field. Rocco getting very aggressive early on. Normally in a 100-lap race at this track, things would be pretty exciting for green to checkers. Things settling out, guys riding, guys understanding this is a very long race, as Ryan Preece in the 77 car demonstrating as he is very patient, one car at a time, working his way forward.
A couple of guys we want to watch include Bobby Santos in the number 44. He's trying to win 4 straight modified races here at New Hampshire. He's won 4, but the last 3 in a row, he's one to watch in that Tinio number 44. And the number 3 of Matt Swanson. He has taken over that ride for Rowan Pennick. Did a great job with the car at the Thompson Speedway back in the beginning of August. And this is his first shot at the big scene here at New Hampshire in that bowler number 3. Right now, Matt Swanson running into number 3 in the 14th spot.
Jeff Rocco continues to pass cars in that one machine. His more famous brother Keith not running here today. Keith Rocco, an SK standout throughout the state of Connecticut, but Jeff getting the call from Eddie Harvey to drive this one car now picks up another spot. Looks like he may lose it on a crossover. No, Rocco picks up the spot.
We've had a change for the lead, as he's done so many times already this season. Justin Bonsignor in the number 51 gets around Chase Dowling to take the lead, but that may not be for long as Dowling pulls right back up on the back bumper, and Ron Silk is with him. They are nose to tail through the 3rd and 4th turn, racing down the front stretch, and Bonsignor will lead yet another lap with Dowling in 2nd, Silk, Emmerling in the 4th spot, and Doug Kobe rounding out the top 5. Silk will drop out of line to the bottom of the racetrack, gets underneath Chase Dowling, trying to take the spot away, but Dowling hooked right to the back bumper of Bonsignor, won't allow it to happen, and Silk has to pull right back into line in the 3rd spot.
Look for Ron Silk to be fairly aggressive, get to the front of the field. As we've got, 3 cars around over in turn number 2. Looks like Matt Swanson is there. Swanson is in that. Is that the 1 car? Is that Jeff Rocco? In that, he was racing in that group.
Yeah, Calvin
and the
Carroll.
25, Calvin Carroll, Jeff Rocco, and Matt Swanson. Sorry, Pete, but yeah, those 3 cars, and looks like so far looks like Carroll's car the most heavily damaged.
Let's find out more about it. Let's go to Joe Koss.
Keeping an eye on the race leaders, Pete and Andy, and the race for the top spot, not only about the $100 lap leader bonus you get for leading this Musket 250, but also about trying to keep the engine temperatures a bit cool. Justin Bonsignor wants to be out in front because the engine temperatures on his number 51 getting up to 195 degrees, and trying to figure out whether or not it would be important for him to jump out and dominate the race early on and keep that engine cool, or whether or not he should continue to follow Chase Dowling and see if he can keep the car cool by just poking the nose out when they go down the straightaway. So one of the things that they're keeping an eye on there, Chase Dowling and his team feel like their car is very, very good on corner exit. He's able to get through the turn very quickly, back to the accelerator, and power up off the turns. He says that's why that car is so strong in the early few laps.
Thank you, Joe. Good to see that all the drivers are okay in that mishap over there in the 2nd turn. Tough break for all of those competitors. We were just talking about Matt Swanson making his first start in that bowler number 3 as he's taken over the ride for Rowan Pennick. He did of course run at Thompson for the when Rowan Pennick was out after his wife giving birth, and then Rowan with the back problems, having to give up the ride, and young Matt Swanson out of Acton, Mass, able to take over the ride, and after building such confidence with the car owners, with the performance that he had in that car at Thompson back in the beginning of August, and a tough break for him as he smashed right into Jeff Rocco, who's got the right front ripped off that car up against the wall in the third turn. Calvin Carroll, a tough break for him as well, the New Jersey driver. Looks like his day may be done. Ryan Preece on pit road in the 77. They're making some adjustments to that car. He's down and away and headed back out again.
Looks like one of the crew members for that Gary Putnam owned number 77, the Mike Kerb car. Those they came out with a NASCAR official and were showing them that they were down on air pressure, so they think they had a flat tire, flat right front on that 77 car. Just to touch on Matt Swanson, it's been announced he will be in that car the rest of this season. So a little stability there for that situation for Matt Swanson in the Bowler family Old Blue, the number 3 car. Jeff Rocco's car badly damaged. The right front completely knocked off of that car as it got in hard, and Calvin Carroll also involved. So tough break for those 3. As they sit up there, we get the racetrack cleared off.
Well, Justin Bonsignor, who, of course, is having just a terrific year in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. We heard Joe talk to him earlier, and also Joe to mention the fact that with a good run today, he could solidify his championship run here for 2018. Just 15 points between Bonsignor in the lead points as far as it goes. But again, a good performance today, even to pick up another win. And he's been to victory lane here, not in a points race. He won the All-Star race for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour back in July. But of course, he's a multi-time winner on the circuit throughout 2018. So he's back in front, a position that he is well familiar with, and got around Chase Dowling, our pole sitter. Ron Silk has a couple of wins here at New Hampshire in his history, currently running in the 3rd spot. Patrick Emmerling does well here at New Hampshire, and he's looking for a good run. And Ryan Preece, as we said, after running his Xfinity car, came here to jump into Gary Putnam number 77, which Gary practiced and qualified yesterday. But he's been on pit road. Let's find out what happened, Joe.
Yeah, there was a right front tire that went down for Ryan Preece, and they put some air in it just to make sure, as Andy had mentioned a moment ago, that it was leaking indeed. They've got about a 2-inch gash in the side of the Hoosier sidewall for the number 77 for Ryan Preece. A little bit of a contact out in the racetrack. They brought it down pit road, make sure that the toe, basically both wheels, are still pointed in the right direction as they should be, and then sent him back out onto the racetrack. So an early stop for Ryan Preece in that 77 car. Now, he drove from Richmond last night, left the racetrack after driving that Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota to a top 20 finish here just one night ago. His dad and he hopped in the car, drove all the way up here to New Hampshire Motor Speedway to participate in the event here today, and got in this race car that he hasn't driven in quite some time. He's teamed up with Gary Putnam in the past, but this was the first time he had the chance to get inside this 77 car here today, as that car again comes down pit lane. Ryan Preece, the Xfinity Series and modified standout, 2-time NASCAR Xfinity Series winner, including Bristol earlier this year and Iowa a year ago. They turned the wheel to the right, and they are working on the right front suspension of this machine. Now, the man that's doing the work, if you sit in the grandstands, you can see that red jacket. That is Gary Putnam. He practiced and qualified this car yesterday, originally from Vernon, Connecticut. Went on to become one of the best in NASCAR's top series. He's a winner of the Daytona 500. He's won the Brickyard 400 back in 2010 in the same year while working with Jamie McMurray, and that's why you see that red jacket of McDonald's colors for Gary Putnam. He now leads the R&D facility at Chip Ganassi Racing and has the opportunity to field this modified on the weekends. He makes a quick chassis adjustment for the 77 of Ryan Preece and sends him back on his way.
Well, no doubt they might have made some contact. He was obviously further back in the field, having to drop to the back for the start today, and it could be with all of that action that went on up in the 3rd turn, made contact with somebody that damaged that tire and maybe knocked the toe out as far as the front end goes on that number 77. So Ryan Preece will be one to watch come through the field. Of course, that car sat on the pole here in July with Ryan Newman at the wheel and had a top 5 finish as well. So that car does well when it comes to New Hampshire, no matter who happens to be behind the wheel. And I think we'd have to say that Ryan Preece is probably the guy that's traveled the most miles this weekend, as he drove all those laps in the Xfinity race at Richmond, then drove all those miles from Richmond to Loudon, New Hampshire, and now going to drive the 264.5 miles in this race. Well, actually more if it ends up going beyond the scheduled finish of this race, like we saw in the K&N Pro Series race. And if Ryan can make it all the way to the end, he'll have racked up some miles this weekend, that's for sure.
Do you get frequent flyer miles for all that? I don't know, but I got a feeling that Ryan Preece, no matter the outcome here today, is going to sleep like an absolute baby tonight. He's going to be one tired young man. That race got over fairly late last night, and then, as I said, he and his father, I'm sure he slept some on the way up, but I'm sure he shared some of the driving duties, so not a lot of sleep for Ryan Preece.
Well, at least not for the next 200 and some odd laps to go here, as he will restart at the back after a couple of trips to pit road. Ronnie Williams was on pit road as well, or under this elongated caution, and he too restarting from the back in that number 21. In this inaugural running of the Musket 250 here at New Hampshire, there's been a lot of anticipation for this race. And of course, the winner we talked about, the big prize money that would be coming from this event, but the very classy one-of-a-kind trophy that'll go to the winner as well, which has a handmade musket as part of it from made in Connecticut, that flintlock musket, handmade, similar to a musket that was made for Dale Earnhardt Jr. as a retiring gift from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Joe is with Calvin Carroll, who was involved in that accident.
Yeah, Calvin Carroll walking with his helmet in hand back here in the Whelen Modified Tour garage area. Calvin, what happened out there on the racetrack that put you out?
There were 2 cars up in turn 2 wall. I got out of the gas, and Priest just pushed me right up out of the groove, and then right into the wall. There was nothing I could do. So.
All right, that's Calvin Carroll. He's out for the day here. He's going to make his way back to his team back here in the garage area. One of the newer faces on the Whelen Modified Tour, starting to make a name for himself. But today, his race will be cut short. He's out after the first caution of the day.
We see a move that might be one of strategy for Dave Zapienza on pit road. They're putting fuel in his number 36. Of course, fuel will be of concern for a lot of the drivers today. Let's find out more on that from Joe.
That strategy might be something that we see throughout the day today, Pete. Remember, they are going to have that competition caution here on lap number 100. Most of these teams run the NASCAR spec engine, and that's good enough for about 85, maybe 90 laps worth of fuel. And so you will see many of the teams come down pit lane here early on if there's a caution. Once they get within that window, now you see 15 laps up on the scoreboard. That puts them pretty close to being able to go 85 laps to the end of segment number 1. That might be the one and only fuel stop that you'll see out of the Zapienza number 36 here in this first segment of the race. But keep that in mind as the race plays out today.
So lights out around the speedway, lights out on the Toyota pace car as we get ready to resume the Musket 250. 16 in the books. When we cross the stripe, it'll be 17 laps in the books as we work our way towards lap 100 in the competition caution, and then lap 250 as we go historic distance here for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Justin Bonsignor set to lead them back to the green.
Toyota pace car gets out of the way coming out of turn 4, and all eyes are on starter Bob Slade, who throws the green flag in the air, and we're back underway. Dowling and Bonsignor going side by side down into turn 1.
Dowling with a nose out in front. Looks like Ron Silk's going to try to follow him through. Up the hill he goes. Has to get out of the throttle a little bit. Calvin Carroll back on the outside. Patrick Emmerling on the outside. Todd Cody on the inside. That's the battle for fourth as the jostling begins at the front of the field, mid part of the pack, starting to straighten itself out. But off of turn number 4, Bonsignor leads the way.
Yeah, Bonsignor, Dowling, and Silk. Doug Kobe looking at the bottom, but can't advance his position down on the low side. Patrick Emmerling races down there, rather on the outside, and holds on to the 4th spot as they head down the backstretch. Quite a battle up there early on. Kobe trying to find a place to pull into line.
Doug Kobe had a dancing partner in Timmy Solomito. Solomito could see that wasn't going to work, so he moved up the hill, found a spot in line on the high side of the racetrack. Now Kobe going to slide up and fill that hole as well as he gets into line, and we are single file with the first 15 or 18 cars out in front. Bonsignor leads the way.
Yeah, Dowling hooks up with him on the back bumper as they head down the backstretch. Silk stays right with him. Emmerling by himself in the 4th spot. Then it's John McKennedy in the number 70. And one driver disappointed to be out of this race early is Matt Swanson. Let's hear from him, Joe.
Matt Swanson back in the garage area. And Matt, I know you were very excited about running this 3-car here for another trip on the Whelen Modified Tour. Involved in an early race incident. How disappointing is it?
Oh, it stinks, you know. We had a really good stare at racing Cape Cod Copper number 3 today. And it just stinks when you get wrecked by someone that doesn't belong here. It's just really unfortunate. We're so early into a race that's 250 laps long, and I mean, you're just kind of trying to see what your car does in the draft and passing back and forth with someone, but when you get wrecked that early, you can't really tell what your car's doing. So I just can't thank my Starrett team, this whole BRE Enterprises team that hangs in there with me. It's 2 weeks in a row that we've gotten wrecked now by someone else that just really doesn't belong where they are. But, you know, we'll come back at Stafford next week and hopefully get them there.
That's Matt Swanson, who is out of the event today. He ran his family team's car for much of the season this year, but now he moved over to one of the most famous cars in modified racing, and that's the Old Blue Bowler Racing number 3. As Andy said earlier, he'll be in this car for the rest of the year and hoping to be in the car for next season as well, but he is out early.
Justin Bonsignor continues to show the way. Thank you, Joe, for that report. And tough break for Matt Swanson. Clearly very disappointed as one of the Obi Builders machines makes its way onto the speedway. This is the 97. This is Todd Cooper, one of the Brian Duzat owned machines, as looks like a right rear flat on that car. Bonsignor out in front, Chase Dowling in second, Silk in third, Emmerling fourth. And it looks like John McKennedy doing a nice job up into fifth. McKennedy with lots and lots of experience in these cars. He's a former modified champion, former super modified champion, has never seen much success here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
He'd like to make that so today. He, of course, was the winner of the opening race of the 2018 season at Myrtle Beach, all the way back on March 17th, which seems so long ago. Meanwhile, up front, here is Bonsignor and Dowling exchanging the lead back and forth. Ron Silk gets to watch it from the 3rd spot. Again, they're all kind of settling into position here as we got a ways to go. 25 laps complete of the 250 here at New Hampshire this afternoon.
Out onto the back straightaway, change for the lead as Dowling out in front. Bonsignor going to pull right up on the back bumper. Ron Silk right there as well. Those three trying to break away. Dowling continues to show the way. And keep in mind, $100 a lap every time they cross the stripe. It's $100 to that driver. So Dowling another $100. Bonsignor in second, Silk in third. As the field pretty well strung out, pretty well single file as we try to click off some laps here as we are 26, about a tenth of the way into this thing.
And again, rather unpredictable for these guys. They know that the strategies that they had for running the 100-lap events, they pretty much have to throw out the window on this one. But I think the consensus of opinion in the garage area was that you need to get in, find your spot, and then set a pace right there and try to stay out of trouble, which unfortunately was not the case for the three drivers that whose cars got into that skirmish up in turn 3 and their day ended early. But they will see, unless of course it's brought about for a mishap or debris on the racetrack, they will see a break in this race that is scheduled after lap 100. But other than that, we'll have to see how the pace goes. Right now, those front runners are sticking with each other, and nobody really running away with it at this point.
So we've talked about Ryan Preece off and on. Joe's talked about it. Pete's talked about it. Ryan Preece ran a whole big bunch of miles this week, and he ran the Xfinity race last night. Started shotgun on the field after Gary Putnam qualified the car. Ryan Preece up into the 13th position. Ryan Preece is on the move in that blue number 77. He is up into 13th. Pulls up on the back bumper of Burt Myers in car number 11 as he looks to continue to move forward off of turn number 2. Out in front, it continues to be Chase Dowling leading the way. Justin Bonsignor and Ronnie Silk as they look to pretty well dominate this thing here in the early going.
Well, Silk tested the waters there a lap or so ago as he went to the bottom of the racetrack and thought maybe he'd be able to get by those guys. But again, when you're down there by yourself and those two are hooked up nose to tail, not as easy to make a pass. So he decided to settle right in the third spot. And that freight train of those three starts to pull away from Patrick Emmerling, who is in the fourth spot. And meanwhile, Andy Seiss now making a move down on the bottom of McKennedy. Seiss in that 57, who's been fast here all weekend long, makes the move and picks up the spot. Seiss now inside the top 5 in that number 57. Right behind him is McKennedy in 6th. Timmy Solomito is 7th. Doug Kobe is 8th. Bobby Santos is 9th. And his brother-in-law, Woody Pitkat, running in the 10th spot right now.
Yeah, the second of the Danny Watts owned machines, that orange number 82. Danny Watts owns that car. Woody Pitkat doing the driving. Interesting that Seiss and John McKennedy running together. Those two guys both really good at this racetrack, have always shown speed every time they come here. The problem is neither one of them's ever been able to buy any luck at this racetrack. Seiss has blown motors and wrecked cars and torn stuff up, and McKennedy's always had something go wrong when he was at this racetrack. So those two trying to get that monkey off their back. Seiss now works to the inside. He'll take over the position from Patrick Emmerling as Seiss up into the 4th spot now.
And we've got a change for the lead once again. Justin Bonsignor goes to the point into the number 15. And while Dowling was up a groove while Bonsignor was passing, again, Silk decided to test it, but could not make the pass and settles back into the 3rd spot. So the two leaders again hook up nose to tail, race down into turn 3. Only this time it's Bonsignor, the lead car, with Chase Dowling right behind, Silk in the 3rd spot, and Andy Seiss making his march to the front. He is up to 4th.
Good racing at the back of the top 10. Woody Pitkat runs 9th. Nope, make that 10th. Ryan Preece up into the 9th spot. Now Pitkat back on the inside. Doug Kobe right there as well. Those three cars right under a blanket. Off of turn number 2 now. Kobe holds on to the spot. Pitkat going to move back. He will slide up behind Preece. Now Preece drops back to the inside. Preece on the march. That 77 car really, really good despite the flat tire and toe issue early on.
He was able to get by Kobe, slid up in front of him in enough time to get up and get around the lap car of Jamie Tomeno, and does so. Now Kobe setting his, Preece in the 77, setting his sight on Solomito in the number 16. Meanwhile, the leaders continue to pull away. Those top 3 are racing through the 3rd and 4th turn. Bonsignor continues to be on the point.
Good racing throughout the field here. The top 3 have broken away, but Ryan Preece is on the march. He is picking him up, putting him down. Eric Goodale in that 58 car has struggled a little bit, but he is starting to make some moves as he works his way towards the front of the field, he hopes. But out in front, those front three have absolutely dominated. Andy Seiss would like to get up and join that fight, but he's going to need some help. He's going to need Emmerling and McKennedy to get up on his back bumper and form a draft of their own and try to catch those front three that are just clicking off the laps at the front of the field, picking up those $100 bonus checks.
Well, when you stop and think that the leader just ran a 29.3 out here, they're turning some quick times here, continuing in this race. Certainly the time's not falling off very much, but we're still early on in the grand scheme of things. It's going to be 38 laps complete out of the 250 this time by, as the leaders now with a great gap over the fourth spot. That's Seiss. Seiss has Emmerling up on the back bumper, and John McKennedy takes a piece of it too.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned the leaders running 29.3s. They qualified at 29.4s, so it shows what the draft will do. Normally in race trim, you would slow down a little bit. These cars actually picking up speed in the draft, so they're about 1/10 of a second quicker here in race conditions than they were in qualifying trim yesterday.
Another change of position as Patrick Emmerling goes underneath Andy Seiss to take the spot away, but Seiss stays right there, glued to the back bumper of Emmerling's 07, and he's got John McKennedy with him. And right behind them is that potent number 77. Or correction, the 77 coming up on the back bumper of the number 7 as he continues to make his march to the front.
Coming up on 40 laps complete here at Whelen Engineering Designs and Manufactures, the official warning lights of NASCAR. Whelen's products can be seen on just about every racetrack in the United States, including here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where we run the Musket 250, what we hope will become the first annual Musket 250. It won't be annual until we do it again next year, but a huge buzz surrounding this race throughout New England and throughout the motorsports community. So it's been a lot of fun here, and just 40 laps into this thing, a long, long way to go.
Burt Myers in the 11, just over around the outside of Doug Coby to pick up a spot. Meanwhile, Bobby Santos making a move down underneath Woody Pitcat to pick up a spot as well. So some jostling back there just inside the top 10 as those guys trade position down the backstretch.
Myers right there ahead of the multi-time champion Doug Coby in that 2 car. Myers, the many-time Bowman Gray Stadium champion and Southern Modified Tour when that existed champion.
Let's go to pit road. Here's Joe Koss.
Pete, one of the things that some of the drivers were telling us before the race started was somewhere around lap 40 on the green flag runs, you'll be able to really determine which cars are set up to have good handling and which are just leaning on fresh rubber to be able to make their car go as fast as they want it to be. Justin Bonsignore specifically he said around lap 40 is when the tires start to lose the handle, and you can feel that difference in the steering wheel when you're driving one of these modifies. He said you should see which cars are the class of the field here today when you get about 40 laps into a run. And so keep an eye on that while you watch this race at this point in time to see which cars are continuing to move forward, which cars are stagnating, and in the case of Chase Dowling and Justin Bonsignore, which two can stay out in front and lead the charge around the Magic Mile.
Well, right now, those three have pulled away from the rest of the field. Dowling and Bonsignore. Silk again took a look to the inside but couldn't make it happen, and because of that lost a couple of lengths on the front two. Meanwhile, right behind them, the guy that's really making that march is Ryan Preece in the number 77. He is down underneath Andy Seiss. We've got a 4-car battle for the 4th spot. Preece on the inside of Seiss. Then we've got the 7 coming right behind him, John McKennedy, as McKennedy is trying to pick up a spot underneath Patrick Emmerling. So the popular number in that group is 7, because we've got the 77, the 57, the 07, and the number 7 all running nose to tail out of turn 2. But it seems to have calmed down, at least for the moment.
So 7s are wild from 4th on back, but out front, Chase Dowling back to the front. He is comfortably leading some laps here now. Keep in mind, these guys want to lead laps. It's not that being out in front is so great, it's that it pays $100. So Chase Dowling going to lead all the laps he can. In second, Justin Bonsignor would like to get back to the front, make his team some money. And Ronnie Silk, he'd love to get up there and join in that action as well. He drops to the bottom again. He's been able to get to the inside of one car. He just can't get around that second car. And with the 2 cars nose to tail, there's no way for him to go. He's going to drop back into third. Here he goes trying it again.
Yeah, he's going to get all the way down on the bottom of the racetrack in that number 85. Tries to get launched out of turn 2. But again, as long as Bonsignor stays hooked to the bumper of Chase Dowling, he's not able to make that move. So Silk has to pull it back in the line and down the front stretch. Again, he'll look to the inside, but they'll go nose to tail into turn 3.
So Ryan Preece right now just a little over 3 seconds back of the leaders, as once again down on the bottom of the racetrack, Ron Silk in that 85 just can't get the move done with those 2 cars, Bonsignor and Dowling, working together. Keep in mind, Dowling is a House LFR chassis, Bonsignor also in an LFR chassis, so they're not really teammates, but certainly more inclined to work with each other than they are with Ronnie Silk.
And there they go. Once again, nose to tail into turn 3. Silk again will bring it down on the bottom of the racetrack, hoping that there might be enough of a gap between them that he could slide up in front, at least pick up the second spot. They're going to encounter some of the back markers here now as they head into turn number 1. Wade Cole in the 33, Dave Zapienza in the 36 are just right straight ahead of them. No problem dispatching Cole as they head into turn number 3. And again, the lap traffic has not really played much of a part in this as it stands right now. There's pretty much the running order going single file with the lap cars to the inside.
Ryan Preece trying to run down that group in front of McKennedy and Seiss and Emmerling to form up, get behind him, and help push him to that front group. Very similar to how a group would at Daytona or Talladega in a full fendered car. Same effect here in the modifieds at New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
And again, that's exactly what the leaders are trying to do, the 51 and the 15, trying to get and Woody Pitcat in the 82.
Again, we talk about working together. Burt Myers and Bobby Santos have kind of traded spots back and forth a couple of times. Woody Petcat right behind them. Those 3 need to gather up and get to that group in front of them. Just don't seem to want to. Not a lot of working together out there right now. Another guy who's on the move had dropped to the rear a bunch. The 58, Eric Goodale, in that GAF roofing Chevrolet. Goodale had dropped to the rear of the field. He is now working his way back forward through the field in that red and yellow machine.
Well, the top 3 continue to put some real estate between themselves and the 4th place runner, Ryan Preece. They are just on a tear. The lap times have not fallen off on those 3 cars at all. And they've got about a half a straightaway or more over Ryan Preece, who's got Andy Seiss and John McKennedy with him. Just as the leaders make their way out of the turn, that 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, or rather 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th position are just entering the turn. Here's Ron Silk with another look to the bottom, this time trying to go all in as they come up on the lap car of Gary McDonald in the number 26. They have to negotiate their way around him, and therefore Silk again will fall back in line. Every time he goes to make that pass, gets down deep in the turn, he gives up 3 or 4 car lengths by the time he gets back up in line behind those guys.
Good news for the front three. The guys behind them battling again. Andy Seiss up on the outside. Seiss way up the hill now. Ryan Preece all by himself. Seiss had looked to make an outside move, couldn't make that work. John McKennedy and Patrick Emmerling still there behind them, but those four just cannot get it together, cannot work together and try to run down those front three. The only way they're going to get to the back of the front three is with a caution. As Burt Myers up into the 8th position, Bobby Santos 9th, Doug Kobe in the 10th spot. As we run right behind them, Woody Pitcat in that 82 car.
Again, we have a ways to go. We've got 58 complete of the 250. So, again, if you can find your spot that's comfortable and the car is working well, you can jump in there and just take it as it comes. And just as we say that, Chase Dowling makes a pass on Justin Bonsignor to take the lead back again. While the doors open, Ron Silk will try it, but not enough to make the pass. So he is relegated to the 3rd spot once again. That battle between Preece and Seiss, the 77 and the 57, is cooled down at least for the time being. And again, that group of cars follow each other out of turn 2 and down the backstretch.
And that group of 4 has now become a group of 5 as Burt Myers has joined the back door of that group. They do have one lap car in there. That's Dave Sapienza in the 36. As Myers is joining that group, Kobe and Santos battling behind them. Kobe drops to the bottom, looks to the inside on Santos. Can't make that work. He'll move up and fall in line behind Bobby Santos the 3rd.
Leaders are on the backstretch, and for right now, Justin Bonsignor comfortable with following Chase Dowling, our pole sitter, into the 3rd turn. And they've got Ron Silk in tow. As we said, they've kind of all gotten into a comfortable groove here. Not just riding around either, because again, the leaders actually, most of the field remains under 30 seconds. The leader still turning 29 threes and making a best of it. His best lap so far in this race was a 29.2, so if anything, may have dropped off by a 1/10 of a second. But again, they continue to set a torrid pace here in the Musket 250. We'll see how this is going to play out all the way through, because this is an extra long distance to push these race cars.
Front three running up on lap traffic. It's Blake Barney in the 14. Chris Pasteryak, a bit of a surprise there. The Pasteryak family, long-time modified competitors. Pasteryak, a multi-time MRS champion, and now running here with the NASCAR Whelen modified series. But so it's Blake Barney and Chris Pasteryak and Jamie Tomeno, a former champion. Those three about to go a lap down to the leaders as they are quickly approaching as they head for turn number 3. Pasteryak now to the inside on Barney as he tries to get away from the leaders and stay on the lead lap here.
They'll have to pick their way through. This may be an opportunity for Ron Silk, who's been trying to advance a position with each and every lap. And now, depending upon how they handle the lap traffic, it might be an advantage for Silk to pick up a spot. But Bonsignor won't give up that back bumper of Chase Dowling, so there's no chance of sliding up in front of him to take over the 2nd spot. And that's been the problem for Silk each time he's given it a try. And again, around some of the back markers of the field, as you mentioned, Blake Barney in the 14 and Chris Pasteryak in the 75. They stayed to the bottom of the racetrack after getting the passing flag from Bob Slade, and they have no problem getting around those cars and continue to run 1, 2, 3. Then you've got to go a straightaway back to Ryan Preece in the 4th spot. Patrick Emmerling flexing a little muscle there in the 07. Working the bottom of Andy Seiss. Can't quite get it done. Now he's got to contend with Burt Myers in the 11. Myers up on the outside. He's been making a charge up inside the top 10 for a good part of this race. And yes, he gets by Emmerling. Picks up the 7th spot. Emmerling is back to 8th. Doug Kobe hanging right in there in the 9th spot. And Bobby Santos rounds out the top 10.
68 or 67 laps in the books now. 67 in the books of our 250 lap Musket 250. Keep in mind, there will be a competition caution at lap 100. That's what these teams are kind of hanging out for. The concern right now, though, is fuel. The talk was about 80 laps on fuel. 80 laps on fuel, as we've got one off the pace on the bottom of the racetrack over in turn number 1. Looks like Melissa Fifield in that 0-1.
Yeah, she just came off of pit road and trying to get up to speed there on the backstretch. Let's go back to the pit road. Here's Joe Koss.
It's going to be very busy down here on pit road. Andy just mentioned a moment ago, we are about 10 laps or so away from a round of green flag pit stops for these NASCAR Whelen Modifieds. Now, they can't go about 85 laps on a tank of fuel. We did have some caution laps in there, so that might extend that window a little bit. But knowing that you've got a competition caution at lap 100, many of the teams will go ahead and play that conservative. So for the first time, since I can remember, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour cars are going to have a round of green flag pit stops. If we can make it another 10 laps or so to get to that lap 80 mark, we'll see some activity here on pit lane and to come down. Now, many of these teams have not practiced getting the car rode down from the speed that they're working off turn number 4 down to the 45 miles per hour pit lane speed here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. That's one thing that's going to be a little bit tricky, so we'll have to keep an eye on that if anybody can get off pit road cleanly. The other thing you have to keep in mind, there is one car that has already come down pit road and should have enough fuel to go the rest of the way, and that is Dave Zapienza. So if we say green flag to lap 100 of that competition caution, Dave Zapienza could assume the race lead if his car makes it on fuel, and in the process would end up lapping a lot of the competitors. So it's going to be interesting to see, A, if we can go green the rest of the way, and B, how green flag pit stops play out for the first time in many, many years in Whelen Modified Tour competition about 10 laps from now.
Well, we'll see how that goes. As you mentioned, Dave Zapienza rolling the dice a little bit earlier on in this race, though he has gone a lap down. We'll see how that plays out if these guys continue to come to pit road. And Joe, you made a good point about slowing these cars down to the pit road speed. That is not something they are used to. Speed 2. Kobe is on the bottom trying to pick up position. Kobe in that number 2, down underneath Andy Seiss and John McKennedy. Coming up on the lap car of Ken Heggie. He's got to tuck it back up behind McKennedy, or rather behind Seiss, as they race through that second turn. And Kobe, who was trying to advance the position again, was not able to do so, as he had to give way to the lap car that was on the bottom. So he'll get back in line with the rest of those cars. That is the race from 4th on back, and it's been a good one since the drop of the green flag after the caution flag a while back. Leaders are in turn 2, and it continues to be Chase Dowling.
Dowling out in front, but some good cars starting to go a lap down. We talked about Chris Pastriak, the second-generation driver, always does a nice job. He's a lap down. Timmy Solomito in that 16 car, the Flamengo Motorsports machine. That car, a former championship car, struggling here today. They are a lap down now. So some of the better cars here starting to go a lap down as these front 3, as now Ron Silk has moved up into second. Silk takes away the second position. He'll crack the top 3 finally. He's only tried for about the last 75 laps to get that done. Finally successful.
Yeah, because Bonsignor kind of got out of it a little bit. I didn't actually watch those guys when they went through the first and second turn last time. Don't know whether that had anything to do with a miscue on Bonsignor or not, but the point is that he slowed up just enough that Silk was able to drive on by. In fact, he's losing a little time on Silk at this point, as he has faded ever so slightly in that 3rd spot, the number 51. Thus, of course, he is considering a run to pit road. We'll have to wait and see. But again, Silk has now caught up to the back bumper of Chase Dowling, so we have a different second place runner now than we have had since the beginning of the race, and that is Ron Silk in the number 85. He tried it a number of times down on the bottom. This time made the pass on Bonsignor and trying to get up on the back bumper of Chase Dowling. They'll come around this time and complete 79 laps of the Musket 250 as they streak across the granite stripe here at New Hampshire. Here's Silk going for more. Down on the inside, down into turn one, and he makes the pass. Drives around Chase Dowling, and now we have a new leader. That's Ron Silk, a two-time winner here at New Hampshire. Puts the Kevin Stewart, number 85, out in front with Dowling in chase, and then go back 3 car lengths to Justin Bonsignor in the third spot. They continue to hold a big advantage over the fourth place runner, Ryan Preece, in the 77, who's got Burt Myers with him in the 11.
Bit of a breakaway there for fourth as Preece and Myers is now cars starting to come onto pit road. Preece and Myers have kind of gotten away from that group behind him. Andy Seiss, the first of our lead lap cars to come onto pit road. Seiss in the Brian Duzon on 57, the Obi Builders machine on pit road, and that team goes to work.
Yeah, he's all the way down by the entrance to pit road and putting some fuel in that car and push him away. So a good quick spot for Andy Seiss. Quickly off of pit road. Let's go to Joe.
Standing down in the turn one into pit lane when Gary McDonald went off into turn number one that last time. The car basically shut off getting down into the turn. It caught the attention of many of the teams down here on this end of pit lane because they don't want to pit before a caution flag comes out. They want to make sure that in the case of Andy Seiss, if he came down pit road, he goes a lap down and the caution comes out, he might be in trouble. So right now, everybody very nervous on pins and needles, uncharted territory for all of these modified teams as they try to figure out the best strategy, and more teams get at the ready with fuel cans in hand up on pit wall, ready to bring their driver down pit lane.
A lot of chatter on the radio between the crew chiefs and the driver about what that strategy is going to be. As we've done 82 of 250 and about to click off lap number 83, we see Rob Summers on pit road in the number 64. You mentioned Gary McDonald before. He is on. Summers is headed your way, Joe, as he's about halfway between the start-finish line and turn number one. They're going to go to the right side of the number 64. They're putting fuel in the car and making some adjustments to the front end. Put the wrench in the back of the 64, gave it a couple of turns. He is down and away after fuel and slight handling adjustment. He'll be back out there as the leaders come across the stripe to complete 84 laps of the Musket 250. So going to change the running order a little bit. Let's go back to Joe in the pits.
A flurry of activity down here on pit lane, Pete, and things are going to get busy in about 6 laps. The word from many of the teams is that they are going to come down pit lane in a collective manner among the drivers that are running toward the front of the field at about lap 90. They want to do that so that way, A, they've got a drafting partner when they go back out onto the racetrack, but they also have clear racetrack and can go as far as they can up against that lap 100. On pit road now, the 58 car, Eric Goodale. It'll be a fuel-only stop. He came down with a dancing partner, the former Woody Pitcat in the 82 car. They'll try to pack it full of fuel. Woody Pitcat, the Danny Watts-led team. Car number 82, quicker to get that fuel in that machine. He will pick up a spot on pit road. Eric Goodale now making his way off of pit road. So, again, the leaders of Bonsignor and Chase Dowling 5 laps from now at lap 90 expected on pit lane.
Well, the strategy, Andy, right there is to come in collectively, as we heard Joe say, and then you've got somebody that you can draft with to make up that ground for that's lost when you're on pit road. Let's go back to Joe.
Ronnie Williams, the next guy to come in and take fuel here, lap 86 of this event. They'll pack it full of fuel. They'll also go ahead and clear the grill off, but Williams stalls the car leaving. He fires it up, stalls it again, finally gets that number 21 rolling once again, but Ronnie Williams will lose precious seconds here on pit lane. The champion crowned a week ago for the Stafford Motor Speedway SK Modified Division, having some trouble on this round of pit stops.
And with every lap, more cars peel onto pit road. Burt Myers is down there with the number 11, giving up a top 10 run, and he will go onto pit road for his service.
He was a team car for Andy Seiss, or I should say Jeff Rocco here today in the one car. Similar to what we saw on the Ronnie Silk machine, they'll go in front, clear off some of the rubber that's on the grill directly in front of the radiator to these modified. So critical because of the fact that the draft is so tight up to the bumper of the cars in front of them. 9-time Bowman Raymond Ray Stadium champion 3 in a row for Burt Myers, one of the Southern drivers contesting here in the Musket 250. A good clean and a quick pit stop for this team to get him back out on track.
And a point that you brought up a little while ago, Joe, is interesting to watch these guys as they go through the third and fourth turn and how they have to woe it up, if you will, to get onto pit road. So far, everybody's done it without a problem, Joe.
The other thing of the strategy of this, Pete, is how much fuel you put in the race car. You saw how quick the stop was for Burt Myers. They put only a couple of gallons of fuel in to get them to that lap 100 because they could go ahead in 10 laps from now, take some fuel when they have that competition caution. But they just need enough to get there. I think Eric Goodale, Woody Pitcat, those teams put a lot more fuel in the car, and it may not necessarily have been needed. You only need probably 3 or 4 gallons to get you that 10 laps.
Well, Anthony Nocella is on pit road in the Nocella paving, number 92. And same as we've seen with the other stops, they're going for fuel. But that was a quick one. Just as you described, Joe, a gallon or 2 in that number 92. He is away and headed back to the racetrack.
Well, teams, Pete, will take notice of that because when all of a sudden you've got a lot of guys that lost a lot of track position because they were on pit road for so long, then that is going to be something that catches the attention of the crew chiefs. And that's one of the unknowns, and that's something that these teams would have planned for in the past. But pit signs are out. More activity here along pit lane. Coming down pit road in the near future will be Timmy Salamito in the 16. The pit board is out for Chase Dowling, Justin Bonsignor, and Doug Covey. As some of the leaders peel off pit lane, Bonsignor will be the first among them to come down to the attention of his crew. He said that his car was a little bit loose when it was out in front. They will go ahead and jack up the rear of the car and make an adjustment on the right front spring to try to tighten up the handle of that car. Again, just about 2 seconds of fuel for Justin Bonsignor. Same thing now for the 2 car. They just watched Ronnie Williams in his car stall at the exit of pit lane, so they'll put 5 crew members out to try to push Doug Covey off and make sure that the same thing doesn't happen for him. Meanwhile, Ronnie Silk and Chase Dowling nearly collide on pit lane. Dowling came to a stop trying to get fuel in his number 15 car, and then the 85 was charging in, and a terrible pit stop on top of that for Timmy Salamito. If you look at that 16 car out onto the racetrack, he just took the fuel can out onto the racetrack in that number 16 Sterrett car as it is left pit lane on the side of that automobile. So a terrible stop for that 16 car for Timmy Salamito.
Yes, and he continues to drag it around the racetrack. Here's hoping it doesn't fall off and bring out a debris caution. Tough break for Salamito and a heartbreaker for the crew as he drives around and will return to pit road in that number 16. So a flurry of activity down there, just as predicted. Finally, the fuel can comes off of Salamito's number 16 and lands in the middle of pit road. And see how they treat that one, but it's sitting right in the middle and in a dangerous spot should another car peel off the racetrack and go down onto pit road. It is down there just before one of the timing marks on pit road. We do have a NASCAR official out there and will remove it from the speedway, so no harm, no foul, except that the Salamito crew has lost one of their fuel cans up at the other end of the racetrack from where they are pitted. So we continue to clip the laps off. 95 of 250. Ryan Preece is your new leader in the number 77. Patrick Emmerling running second. Chase Dowling in the third spot. Bobby Santos fourth. And Tommy Catalano up to the fifth spot. That, of course, we'll have to double check that running order, of course, as more cars come on and off of pit road. Joe?
Well, we've talked a lot about the drivers that have to go 85 laps or so on fuel. There are some drivers that can go 110 laps on fuel, and that has to do with the motor that they decided to go with for this event. When it's a little bit quieter under lap 100, we'll explain all of that. That's why you see the 77 of Ryan Preece stay out on the racetrack. The 54 car of Tommy Catalano stay out on the racetrack. They can go 110 miles, 110 laps, I should say, as the caution flag comes out. And that should give them a slight advantage here throughout this Musket 250.
Not the planned caution, but we've got Wade Cole in the number 33 facing the wrong way down here in the fourth turn. And that will bring out a caution flag. He's able to get the car refired and pull back up on the racetrack. So let's find out a little bit more about this fuel situation when it comes to the motors in these cars, Joe.
Well, NASCAR allows these teams, Pete, to run 2 different motors. The most popular of them is a NASCAR spec engine, which was campaigned by NASCAR through Robert Yates Racing. And one of the things that a lot of the teams did is when they came here and started running Loudon over the past handful of years, they found that the spec motor was a little bit faster. And the reason is because the motor, one of 2 things, the materials are a little bit lighter, which means that you can put additional weight around in the race car to help you make the setup a little bit better. But I think the more important part is the fact that the power band on the engines were right in the sweet spot for modifieds here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and they become the norm on the tour. Many of the teams, including the 16 team of Timmy Salamito, owned by Eric Sanderson, they took their motors and they sold them. They went to other race teams, different divisions that don't run in this particular series. One, as a matter of fact, is a museum piece that's over in the Northeast Motorsports Museum just down the road of the Speedway. That used to be the open type motor. They called them the 18-degree motors, and that was a popular motor of the past before the spec engine came in. Now, all of a sudden, though, we've got a couple of teams that thought because they get better fuel mileage with that older built open motor, the ones that we used to run years ago, they put them in their race cars for this Musket 250. And among the cars that have them, Ryan Priest in that 77 car. He's got one of the open built motors along with Tommy Catalano in that number 54 car. Chris Pastriak has one of them as well. And that was a strategy play for these teams because they knew that they can go further and make this race on 2 pit stops and not have to come down pit lane more times for fuel like some of the other teams are going to have to be. That's why Ryan Priest finds himself in the race lead. He didn't have to come down for fuel to get to this mid-race caution here on lap number 98, and that's one of the strategy pieces that he's hoping will propel him to victory later on today.
Well, you've got the entire field coming your way, Joe, as the pace car will lead them down onto pit road. So as we're about to pass lap 99 of the Musket 250, we get to what would have been the competition caution. We're under yellow for the 33 of Wade Cole that spun out right at the entrance to pit road. So we'll get all the cars down here, and as we described, this competition caution will cause the cars to come to their pit stalls, stop, and then the NASCAR officials will give the word as to when the crews can come over the wall and do the service that they plan to do at this competition. Now, we know that some of the drivers aren't going to need to take as much fuel as they would have if they had not stopped earlier, so this no doubt will fall into their strategy for sure.
We've got a bit of a situation out here. The 46 team, he has missed his pit stall completely, Craig Lutz. And so he is backing up pit road. Missed his pit stall by 4 or 5 stalls. Now he will make the hard left-hand turn into his pit stall. And NASCAR will turn the teams loose to work on their cars. NASCAR has done so. The officials waving the crew members out onto the track. And we'll go back down to Joe.
Well, Andy, one of the things that these teams are allowed to do under this 5-minute break here is that they can change tires, they can make any adjustments they want, they can take fuel. One of the rules that they have in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour from a safety standpoint is that you can't fuel and change tires on the same pit stop. If an air gun were to be able to put a spark on the ground with one of those loose lug nuts, it could ignite the flame. And so what they do is they separate that on purpose, and they'll do the same thing here. A lot of the teams will go out, they'll change tires, they'll pull the air guns back to the other side of pit wall, and then they'll go ahead and fill up that fuel to be able to get them into the second half of the race. Now, many of the teams before the race started today told us about how important it was to run this race in 2 segments. The next segment now will be about 150 miles, 150 laps. They still have at least 2 more pit stops, 1 for fuel, 1 for tires, and they'll keep an eye on that. This gives them a great opportunity to be able to make some of those chassis adjustments and look over the car and get the car exactly where they need it to be. There's a couple of different strategies that'll play out here on this pit stop. A lot of the teams took their tires out and they went out for a few laps in practice to scuff them in, to get some heat into the tires and get them ready for race day. Other teams, like Timmy Salamito, he's going to put sticker tires on, tires that have never gone on the racetrack. And so that's another strategy that the teams are employing right now as they get ready to go. They still have a lot of tires that they can put on these cars. They were given 12 tires that they could change throughout the race. On a typical Whelen Modified Tour race, they get about 3. Sometimes they get 1. It all depends on the racetrack, but today with the 250-lap race, they will get 12 tires that they can put on. Most teams will use 8 of those tires, but if there's a shootout at the end, you can expect teams to want to come down and get 4 more tires. So a very busy place here on pit road, but teams can take their time to get it right, and they'll go back out onto the racetrack exactly how they entered pit lane.
Thanks, Joe. Great job down there on pit road. We appreciate the work of Joe Koss running back and forth along pit road to bring us those reports this afternoon. I'm Pete Falcone along with Andy Hall, bringing you the action here from the booth high above the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where you're watching history being made with the running of the Musket 250. Officially 99 laps of the 250 have been completed, and pretty much the way Joe described it, Andy, is that this is falling into the strategy that these teams had coming into the race, and so it'll be interesting to see now. We've got a lengthy amount of laps to go, just 150 laps will be left once we get them back out onto the racetrack, and that's where the individual strategies will have to come into play, because just about everybody, of course, was planning on the competition caution, the splash of fuel before they came for it, and now, if they're going to go the distance the rest of the way, their own individual plans will come into play.
Yeah, the first 100 laps is easy. Get me to that competition caution, preferably on the lead lap with the car in one piece and in good shape. Then we go racing for 150 laps from there. We're definitely going to have one more pit stop, as we've got problems down on pit road. Wade Cole's car erupting in steam, as it looks like that car is overheating. He was the one that got turned around over here on turn number 4, so a problem in the 33 pits for Wade Cole, one of the wily veterans of the sport, been around for a long, long time. So looks like that may be the end for Wade Cole. Tough break for him. But now we go racing for 150 laps, and these teams really need to start to figure out what they're going to do. Do I pit early? Do I pit late? If I've got the built motor where I get better fuel mileage, how far do I stretch it? There's all these things that come into play, and then throw in cautions, maybe a late caution. Again, as Joe said, 12 tires, they could go 80 laps, put on 4, and then with 20 to go, have 4 sitting in the pit box. So many questions, so many things that can happen over the next 150 laps.
Interesting for sure. Let's give some credit to the guy you just mentioned a minute ago, Wade Cole. You know, we've had 69 races for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour here at New Hampshire. He's been in 62 of them, so nobody else really comes close, with the exception of Jamie Tomeno, who, of course, has run every one of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour races here at New Hampshire.
So here's the other thing about Wade Cole we need to point out. Pete, do you see his hauler anywhere down here amongst these trucks and trailers? You don't see it because it's a little Ford ramp truck. These teams with these great big stacker trailers, the big trailer trucks, the big 40 and 50 foot long trailers, all showing up with their modifieds. Wade's is the one down just this side of the Hoosier trailer. You can see the ramps. It is a Ford ramp truck. That's what he hauls all up and down the northeast part of the country with that race car. It's usually he and maybe 1 or 2 other team members. If they have to do a pit stop, he goes to other teams and begs and pleads for help. And the teams always do, because Wade's just one of those guys you want to help. He's a good guy. He's an underfunded team, but he's always out there. He's always supporting the series, never bad-mouthing anybody. It's just really nice to have him a part of this NASCAR Whelen Modified series.
Most definitely. Joe?
Well, Pete, they say not all politicians are bad, right? Wade Cole is the first selectman of the small town of Hartland, Connecticut, so he's a busy guy indeed. I've caught up with one of the tire specialists down here on pit lane, Timmy Armbruster, who is a tire specialist for Doug Kobe and the Mayhew Tools #2 team. Today, Timmy, you've got a very busy day with 12 tires you have to manage. For you as a Whelen Modified Tour crew member, what does your job look like trying to get the right tires for race day when it all matters during the event like this?
Well, I've been doing this quite a while, working with Phil, and I know exactly what he expects and what Doug expects. And it takes a whole day just to get yourself set up and figuring out different situations and trying to figure out how this whole race is going to play out as to which sets we're going to put on at which time. And then periodically it changes throughout the race, so we've got to be ready for anything that changes.
Now, you say it takes a whole day, but it's just 1/8 of an inch. That's Timmy Armbruster. He is the tire specialist for the Mayhew Tools #2 car. Now, what he's trying to get when he measures all those tires is he goes to the tire truck, he finds a tire, he mounts it on a rim, and he's looking for a certain circumference around. These modifieds are very, very sensitive based on the size of the tires, and so he will go through for 3 or 4 hours putting many, many pieces of rubber on these different wheels to try to get the exact combination that they know their car responds to. And that happens up and down pit lane. The tire guys work very, very hard on a weekend like this, and they are the unsung heroes that really make the magic and give the crew chief and the drivers the tools that they need to be successful, especially on a race like this. We've talked about the uncharted territory, how this is so new for all these guys. Well, changing that many tires is critical, and being able to be successful in what you do yesterday in preparation for this race will make the difference when we get to lap 250.
Oh, Joe, that's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. I stress over putting the snow tires on in a couple of months, and these guys are worried about things like that. So talk about strategy. Wow, they got it totally figured out.
So the question is, Pete, how many snow tires do you mount before you get the set you like for your street car?
Depends on the stagger, Andy, really. Let's go back to Joe.
Down here on pit lane, Timmy Salamito came down once again before we go back under the green flag to get a quick splash of fuel in the Sterrett Tools number 16. Also back on pit lane is Ronnie Williams. Now, they put a new left front tire on this car. They had put sticker tires on the car when they came down under that competition caution, but they're putting the left front down, and they had a hard time getting the fifth lug nut on, which is why it took so long for this car to get off pit lane. Ronnie was revving the engine, trying to get back out on track so he can keep pace with the field as we get ready to go back under green.
As they head into the restart zone, Bob Slade puts the green flag in the air, and we're underway. The running order has been reset, and that puts Ryan Preece in the front. He'll lead him down into turn one, but he's got plenty of company as they're going almost 3 wide out of turn 2 and down the backstretch.
Big charge for Ryan Preece off turn number 2. Is that Bobby Santos up into second? Great pit stop. Great work by the team. Bobby Santos on the charge, moves into the second spot. A guy no stranger to victory lane at this racetrack as they make their way onto the front straightaway.
And his strategy has always been hang around until it's time to go to the front. Well, we still got just under 150 laps to go, but he's going to the front. He's driven underneath the 77 of Preece and taken the lead in that Tinio number 44. He'll lead him down the backstretch. Patrick Emmerling is catching up, and we're going to get a 3-car draft now between Santos, Preece, and Emmerling as they race through the 3rd and 4th turn.
So looking at NASCAR timing and scoring, we've got an interesting situation that because of the pit stops and the way the first segment played out, we got a bunch of cars a lap down. The first of them being that Burt Myers entry, the Harvey Brothers entry. That 11 car is a lap down. He is trying to race himself back onto the lead lap and doing a nice job. He currently runs in the 5th position on the racetrack, but he is a lap down in the 8th position right now.
Yeah, and they're all jockeying for position. The guy who's not advancing as quickly as he would like to is Chase Dowling. He's down on the bottom of the racetrack, way down with the left tires right on that yellow line coming out of turn 4. But because he has no drafting partner, they're all driving by him down into turn 1. The other guy trying to get back to the front is Ron Silk in that number 85. He is up in the draft as they head out of turn 2.
Bobby Santos in a position, well, not for long. Santos about to lose the lead to Ryan Preece. Preece drops to the bottom of the racetrack. He will slide up in front of Santos. Off of turn number 4, he will have the lead. Santos in second. Looks like Emmerling in the 07 is third. Rob Summers up into the top 5. Summers in that 64 doing a nice job as he cracks the top 5. Nope, Summers is another one of those guys that's a lap down. So Rob Summers in the 64 racing amongst those guys, but he's a lap down.
And as it happens every time the modifieds are here at New Hampshire, we go through a couple of pencils keeping track of lead changes, and it's happened again. Bobby Santos getting around Ryan Preece and gets that lead back, and he'll lead the field across the stripe. But here comes Preece with a look to the bottom as they'll exchange the lead one more time. Preece makes the pass down into turn 1. Santos goes to second. Emmerling able to hold on to third. And you talked about Burt Myers in that number 11. He scored in the 8th spot, but he is the first car a lap down to the rest of the leaders.
And what we're seeing now, Pete, is what we expect to see from a modified race here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. For years and years and years, it's been this back and forth battle. We thought this would change with this being 250 laps. It did for the first 100, but now we're back to the same good old New Hampshire Motor Speedway NASCAR Whelen Modified Series racing.
Yeah, Santos is back out in front and finally got a little bit of breathing room as Myers working the bottom as he's trying to get himself back on the lead lap, which would be key for him. Meanwhile, Preece runs second. Emmerling with that decent run continues to run in the 3rd spot. Right behind him, Doug Kobe and Andy Seiss, who's been having a great weekend here. Seiss in that number 57. Zeiss, another one of those cars that is trying to get, though he's in the 9th spot, trying to get back on the lead lap. Here we go again with a change for the lead. Santos underneath Priest and goes back to the point.
Couple of quick notes. That 64 of Rob Summers, he's actually the first car 2 laps down, right there in the mix of things with the top 10. And that 85 for Ron Silk, so strong in the early going, struggling a little bit here, losing some spots in the early going in this second segment. Kevin Stewart's 85 did not get a great set of tires, evidently, here in the second segment. They'll be looking for a pit stop to liven that car up for Ronnie Silk.
Things settle down for the moment as they freight train down the backstretch, nose to tail the entire field, working their way into turn 3. The only guy that's stepped out of line is Ron Silk in the 85. He's gone to the bottom to try and pick up some spots. Right now, our original front 3 are all running together. Chase Dowling, who's down in the bottom. Right behind him is Justin Bonsignor, and then Ron Silk. They're down the backstretch trying to make that march back to the front.
Couple of big name drivers here in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Series running at the front of the pack. Bobby Santos, many time winner in the division, multi-time winner at this racetrack, and Ryan Preece, the Xfinity Series star in the 77, Gary Putnam's car. Those two leading the way, trading the top spot here back and forth at the moment.
Now off the second turn and down the backstretch. Santos in the lead, but the way they've exchanged the lead back and forth, that could be only for the moment. Ryan Preece hanging tough with him. And you'll remember that Preece was on pit road early in this race because of that accident that we had up in turn 2, and had to change a tire on the right front, and there was some concerns about the toe-in of the right front of that number 77, but it looks like they've got it dialed in right, because he is running strong in the second spot and has led this thing a couple of times since the caution, and is about to again as he drives to the bottom of Bobby Santos and put Preece back in the lead.
And Andy Seiss there, he and Burt Myers racing for that lucky dog. If the caution were to come out, they'd ideally like to just race their way back to the front and get back on the lead lap the hard way, but they'll take the lucky dog. Those two battling it out to be the first guy a lap down. As Seiss is down on the bottom, Burt Myers took a shot to the top, couldn't make that work. Now looks back to the bottom, that won't work either. They will settle back in line as the front two can to push him back to
see the John McKennedy in the number 6 to get back up there.
Kennedy, another one of those guys that's a lap down. So a crazy situation here as we
advantage for Doug Coby that'll get him back on the lead lap. Currently scored in 8th, 1 lap down. Just behind him, Andy Seiss, Burt Myers, and John McKennedy. So we're under caution once again. We'll bunch the field up and reset the field and the scoring as well. But we do know that Bobby Santos and Ryan Preece have been exchanging the lead off and on since the drop of the green flag after our competition caution a while back. So we have 117 of the 250 complete. And you see up on the outside, Doug Coby pulling up to go behind the pace car as he will be able to make his way around and become the last car on the lead lap. So advantage for them to get back around there with this caution out. So the running order as they come across the stripe, you can also see on the scoring pylon in the infield. Bobby Santos the third, Ryan Preece second, Patrick Emmerling is third, Justin Bonsignor is fourth, and Ron Silk rounds out the top 5. Let's go to Joe.
Well, a couple of things taking place here on pit lane. Chase Dowling and his team, as they try to race their way back up toward the front of the field. One of the challenges for these teams is the fuel runner job today. Again, not something that these teams are used to on a regular basis. They wanted to see if maybe they can come down pit lane and get some fuel on that machine, but Chase Dowling is pitted all the way down to the turn 1 end of pit road. The fuel cans, you can see the Sunoco sign is almost all the way to the turn 4 end of pit lane, and so the fuel runners today literally have to run to get the fuel from one end of pit lane to another. They want to see if they can get some fuel in this 15 car, but right now there is no fuel can in their pit stall, and they are working to get that done. Another thing that's kind of interesting is we don't see the 54 car of Tommy Catalano running toward the front of the field in these Whelen Modified Tour races very often, so it's a great opportunity to talk. Don't own big businesses like some of the car owners on tour. They are a small family operation that are trying to compete at a high level in NASCAR's Whelen Modified Tour. Now, you don't maybe see him race this part of the country very often, but last season he won 4 championships in 4 different types of race cars, winning at Spencer and Holland Speedway in the Sportsman, or what are the SK type modifieds, also an ROC Sportsman division and the ROC late model champion a year ago. Now, when I say his full family races, tomorrow his mom, Amy, his brother, Tim, will be racing modifieds at the Lancaster Speedway and hopes to be able to have a great day this weekend. It's a great story, a good family operation that are just one of the great groups to be around in NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour competition. Everybody is elbows up working on these cars to prepare them, and to have that car running on the lead lap at this point in the event is a huge accomplishment for the family team.
Well, Joe, we just saw Bobby Santos on pit road going for fuel. Of course, that'll keep him on the lead lap, and because we only have about 8 cars on the lead lap, he'll restart inside the top 10 when we go back to green. He's given up the lead for that purpose while we're under caution. Again, playing into that strategy, going for fuel here on lap 120.
That's exactly the case, too. And now you see Chase Dowling and his team coming down pit road. Literally 10 seconds ago, the fuel runner got back into the pit stall. They grabbed the pit stein, and now they're getting ready to put fuel inside the 15 car for Chase Dowling. Same theory. There's not a lot of cars on the lead lap. Gives you the opportunity to go ahead and do this. Now, the fuel runner's pretty exhausted trying to get the fuel can into that 15 car. They're having a hard time doing it. That can is very, very heavy. It took them about 5 seconds to finally get the fuel latched onto the back of the 15 car of Chase Dowling, and that's why Timmy Salamito ended up beating him off of pit lane. But some of the logistics that these teams are working on throughout this Musket 250.
Yeah, and crew chiefs right now making a note saying for this race next year, we need to get a marathon runner to go get that fuel over at the Sunoco fuel place up there in the, as Joe pointed out, the fuel station is all the way down there at the beginning of pit road, and some of those guys like Chase Dowling all the way down at the other end of pit road. Pace car is off, and we're ready for the restart. It'll be lap 121 when they come to the stripe this time. Green flag is in the air. It's Ryan Preece, Patrick Emmerling, Justin Bonsignor, and Ryan Silk. You could throw a blanket over them down into turn 1.
Down through turns 1 and 2. Ryan Preece quickly out in front. Here comes Ronnie Silk trying to follow him through. He is going to do so. Silk up into second and looking for more. Silk to the inside on Ryan Preece. Silk got a huge drive down the back straightaway, able to take it all the way to the front. Ryan Preece slots into second. Patrick Emmerling is in third. Back up into fourth in a hurry. That's Bobby Santos. And then it's the Myers car, 1 lap down in the 11 as he tries to get back on the lead lap and tries to earn that lucky dog.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known just a minute ago Bobby Santos was on pit road because he's up the 4th. But again, the advantage of so many cars a lap down because of the earlier pit stops put him right up inside the top 10 for the restart, and he's comfortably into the 4th spot now as he follows the leaders off of turn 4. Ron Silk is the leader. Ryan Preece is second. Patrick Emmerling is third. Bobby Santos is 4th. Justin Bonsignor is 5th. And a good run for Tommy Catalano in the 6th spot. Chase Dowling, another one that stopped for fuel. Dowling is up to the 6th spot. Doug Kobe is 7th, and Catalano shuffled back to the 8th spot.
Out in front, Ron Silk, clean and green as he tries to pick up some of those lap leader bonuses. This big lead, he's got 3 or 4 car lengths now, may not be a good idea as we've got a battle for second. Looks like Emmerling down to the inside on Ryan Preece. Emmerling up the hill. Bobby Santos has to get out of the throttle a little bit. Myers has to get out of the throttle a little bit. Everybody able to continue. Justin Bonsignor right there in 5th. Andy Seiss takes a look to the inside on Woody Pitcat. Can't get that done because the lap car of Blake Barney is down on the bottom, but off onto the front straightaway. Ron Silk continues to lead Ryan Preece.
Bobby Santos picks up another spot around Patrick Emmerling to go to 3rd in the number 44. And looking for more, looking to get up on the back bumper of Ryan Preece. Meanwhile, Ron Silk really flexing his muscle there on the back stretches, opened up to a 3-car length lead, and here comes Santos. Drives to the bottom of Preece. There's a space open in front of him, and that works exactly to plan. He gets underneath Preece, slides up the racetrack, and finds himself in 2nd spot across the stripe. Preece will follow him, then Emmerling, and remember Justin Bonsignor in that number 51, rounding out the top 5.
Off of turn number 2 now, headed down the back straightaway. Again, it's Ron Silk. Bobby Santos in 2nd. 3rd is Ryan Preece. Patrick Emmerling is 4th. And it's the lap car of Myers and Justin Bonsignor. Further back, slicing and dicing, Timmy Solomito trying to pick up spots. The field works around the lap car of Blake Barney. That's the red number 14. Kind of throwing a wrinkle into things as Doug Kobe slots in behind Solomito. And then it's Anthony Nocella in car number 92. At the front of the field, Ronnie Silk starting to open up the lead a little bit, believe it or not. Here at a track where drafting plays such a part, it's a bit of a surprise to see Ronnie Silk able to get out in front, but now here comes Ryan Preece. Preece has a look to the bottom. It's not going to work. Ronnie Silk will lead him off turn number 4.
Preece made the same move that Bobby Santos made on him. There was just enough room to slide up in front of him as they came out of turn 4, and Preece takes over the 2nd spot, gives chase to Ron Silk. That shuffles Santos back to 3rd. Then Emmerling, the guy that isn't exactly coming to the front in any big hurry, is Chase Dowling. Now he's scored in the 6th spot. But again, talk about strategy. You don't want to overdrive the car at this stage of the race. We've just got 129 complete as they come across the stripe. And again, you want to save some rubber on that car. So you're going to need it for that sprint to the finish and not want to have to change tires again, even if there's a late race caution. So we see him making his way back to the front, but doing it methodically and not right back up into the mix of the leaders as quickly as you would have thought after that caution.
Dowling picks up the spot on Woody Pitcat, moves to the inside. It's a nice job. 10 now, pretty much single file. Not a lot of moves being made as guys trying to log some laps here as we are just past halfway of the first annual Musket 250 in what has turned out to be a really, really good race. Thought there might be a lot of just single file non-racing going on, but that has not been the case at all. These modified drivers at New Hampshire Motor Speedway are modified drivers at New Hampshire Motor Speedway continue to slice and dice as Bobby Santos and Ryan Preece continue to exchange position. Here comes Patrick Emmerling. He'll move the inside on Preece now, trying to pick up a spot.
Yeah, Emmerling had no choice but to dive down to the bottom because all of a sudden Preece was right there in front of him. Rather than get out of the throttle, Emmerling dove to the bottom of the racetrack and is able to hold on to the 4th spot. And you said it, Andy. The modifieds never disappoint here at the Magic Mile, and they're putting on the same kind of performance that they do when they run a 100-lap race in July. They're just going much, much longer than that. But again, it is intense every lap. And if you think that these guys aren't going to get worn out by the end of this thing, so much mental concentration when you're driving so close and at these speeds, believe me, the driver has to be in shape to get into a race like this and run the kind of competition that they are. And we're seeing it here today as they'll come around and complete 133 laps of the Musket 250.
When you talk about the mental concentration, the physicalness in these cars, as these cars are twitching and jumping around, you've got to sling it to the left, sling it to the right, not run into the guy in front of you. This is a physical game as well. These guys get tired. They get very hot in these race cars. In the pit stops, they're being handed drinks, but they would like to have much, much more than they are getting. Out in front, though, Ronnie Silk, clean and green, doing an outstanding job fought and fought the entire first segment to get to the front. Now that he finally has, he is gone. He is out to about an 8 or 9 car length lead. You never see that here at this racetrack with the modified division. Silk clearly with a good piece under the hood of Kevin Stewart's number 85.
Well, here's a guy that wants to chase after him in Patrick Emmerling in the 07. He gets around Santos and goes to second. Here comes Priest around Santos to go to third. Those two guys would like to hook up and reel in Silk, who continues to grow that lead. And just that fact that Emmerling makes his way down the racetrack and Priest stays right behind him so as to keep the draft intact.
So 135 laps in the books, and it has been nothing but a pass fest. Cars swapping positions, guys going at each other. If that's how the first 135 has been, what's the last 25 or 50 going to be like? This thing is going to be a barn burner coming down to the end. Ron Silk continues to show the way, continues to maintain that 6 or 8 car length lead that you never see out of the modified division at this racetrack. Emmerling runs in second. Priest seems content right now to ride behind Emmerling, then a few car lengths back to Bobby Santos. All these guys just biding their time, waiting for their opportunity late in the race. A guy like Burt Myers, he's got a car fast enough to contend. Problem is he's a lap down. He's the 5th car on the racetrack, but he's a lap down. Needs that caution to get him back on the lead lap and back in contention for the win here this afternoon. The actual 5th place car looks like that is Justin Bonsignor right now. The dream season, as you call it, Pete, absolutely continuing as he rides around here in the top 5. As guys starting to settle down a little bit and show a little patience as we work our way towards lap 138.
And this is the point of the race where they want to get into a rhythm. They don't want to lose a lot of ground, but again, they've got plenty to go in this race. So if they can get into a rhythm and into a position that they like, that the car is comfortable in, then they will continue to do that. And that's pretty much the case here for these guys up front. Talking about Emmerling and Priest, also Santos in the 44. We see Andy Seiss up there. He's been part of the front runners all day. He's been fast all weekend here at New Hampshire. Unfortunately, he is a lap down and not the first car a lap down. He is being scored in the 10th place, but he's got a couple of guys ahead of him that are a lap down, and he'll have to pass a couple more cars if he wants to get into a position. Well, he wants to pass Burt Myers so he can get into a position to be able to pick up that lap should we go under caution again.
Got to send a shout out to the fine folks from Whelen Engineering, longtime supporters of this modified division. Dependable and reliable. All Whelen products are designed, manufactured, and assembled in America. Find out more at www.whelen.com. Like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter as well as Instagram at Whelen-ENGINE. And folks, don't forget, coming up after this race, post-race pit party from 7 to 11 here tonight as we set things down on pit road. And Joe.
Andy, one of the drivers that fell out of the race today was in the 21 car. He's one of the first out, in Ronnie Williams. What exactly happened on the 21 car that sidelined you today?
Yeah, we just blew up. Sucks what happened. No one can really control it, so it's what it is. We'll be back at Stafford.
Describe the temperature of the racing out there. Was it intense? Were people laid back and letting the race come to them? What did you feel behind the wheel?
Not where we were. We were pretty far back there, so I don't really know. The car was starting to get a little bit better, but sucks what happened. Thought we'd have a good piece for the end, but we're out, so it doesn't matter.
That's Ronnie Williams. Again, he won the championship with the Stafford Motor Speedway in the SK Modified division. He's got one championship. Now he's trying to make a name for himself on the Whelen Modified Tour. One thing that we were keeping an eye on some of the radio traffic of some of the teams and drivers, Justin Bonsignor, who's running in that front pack of cars, only a few cars behind the 11 car of Burt Myers. Feels as though Myers might be having a motor problem, and that was causing some concern for Bonsignor. I went down to talk to the 11 team, the Eddie Harvey-owned machine of Burt Myers, and they said, no, we don't have a problem. We're not terribly worried about it. We feel like everything's okay. We're just in cruise control and riding mode. So there's something to keep an eye on. Again, the 11 team of Myers feel like they're okay, but Justin Bonsignor very concerned that there could be a problem with the 11 car.
Well, that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on as we continue to click off the laps here. 144 of 250 complete. And again, showing the strength of Ron Silk, who's been in contention all day in this Musket 250, and he's been able to drive away from the rest of the field without any drafting help. Second and third are running nose to tail, Patrick Emmerling and Ryan Preece. But again, we look at these laps that they're turning, and we have been consistently in that 29.3 range all afternoon. That's what Ron Silk has been running, and so is Patrick Emmerling and Ryan Preece. Just unbelievable speed, particularly for the length of this race. And Silk is on a tear, has the biggest lead of the afternoon right now as we get a change of position in second. Ryan Preece drives underneath Patrick Emmerling and takes that spot away. Again, Bobby Santos in a comfortable fourth spot. Right behind him is that aforementioned Burt Myers, who is the first car a lap down in the number 11. So he is hooked up on the back bumper of Santos. Then it's Bonsignor in the 51. Bonsignor and sixth spot by virtue of getting back on the lead lap after that caution is Doug Kobe in the number 2. Chase Dowling is 7th. Tommy Catalano is 8th, and we get into the lap cars of Burt Myers. He is running in the 9th spot, but as we said, one lap down.
Pete, it's really remarkable to me that 85 car for Ron Silk has been able to drive out the way he has. He's out to about a 15 car. It's over a second lead. That is unheard of at this racetrack. That car is so strong right now, and if he can maintain that, seems like it won't be able to be beat. Unfortunately, he's got a bunch of hungry lions there behind him that would really like to get up there and take that spot away. But right now, Ron Silk absolutely in control of this race.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. He is clear all around, and as you said, has a second over Ryan Preece, who runs in the second place. And that lead pack is pretty much running together right now. Now, we've got a couple of the cars that are a lap down mixed in there, but they're all working together and to maintain the rhythm that they have. Another lap from now, we'll have just 100 laps to go, and we'll see what kind of strategy takes place in that last 100 laps. Certainly what's going to be exciting is the last 50 when we get to that point. But right now, when we have Ron Silk come across the granite stripe, we'll have 150 of 250 complete.
So evidently, Justin Bonsignor has decided it's time to go. Moved out, swung around the lap down car of Burt Myers, picked up that position on the racetrack, although not a position in the running order. Then he dropped to the bottom and got around Bobby Santos in that 44 car. And now Bonsignor goes to work on Emmerling, looks to the high side, now drops to the low side. Bonsignor decided it is time to go as he is picking up spots up into the fourth spot. Another guy who's doing a nice job is Eric Goodale. Goodale trying to move up into that position to get a lap down. Currently scored in 10th, but he is a lap down. Would like to get that lucky dog, and he is up working on getting into position. Now has that position as he's worked around, gotten ahead of Burt Myers in that Eddie Harvey-owned number 11. But out in front, Ron Silk continues to show the way. That battle for second, 3 cars right there together as Justin Bonsignor drops to the bottom. He'll try to pick up a spot now as he tries to slot in behind Ryan Preece and move up in front of Patrick Emmerling, and he will be successful in doing so.
Yeah, with less than 100 laps to go now, you see Justin Bonsignor flexing some muscle in that number 51. He drove around Emmerling, and there was enough room for him to slide up right behind the 77 of Preece. He's going for more as he looks to the low side going into turn 3. Here's Bonsignor. He kind of rockets right by Preece and will pull up in front of him. So this is going to be interesting now because Justin Bonsignor is on it, and he is trying to make a march to the front. As we said, he was the winner of the All-Star race here in July and does not have a win here at New Hampshire in a points race anyway, and that's certainly a big paying race like this one. So he is looking to get the victory lane and just add to the terrific season that he is having. And right now, he's gotten around Ryan Preece and is kind of driving away from him to give chase to Ron Silk. This time by 154 of the 250 laps are complete, and they're stringing it out a little bit now amongst the front runners.
Keep in mind, we do have another pit stop to go. There's at least one more stop for all of these teams as they will come in, and right now it may wind up being a green flag stop, as this has been a long green flag run that shows no sign of coming to an end, as now Burt Myers drops to the inside of Eric Goodale, realizes that's the lucky dog position, needs to be in front for that spot. So Burt Myers back into the lucky dog position. Now Goodale drops to the inside, and that bright yellow and red machine can't get the spot done. Up the hill goes Burt Myers. Goodale back to the inside. Down the back straightaway. Those two battle it out. Best race on the racetrack right now is for the lucky dog spot. Myers has it. Goodale wants it. Doug Kobe right there as well, as Kobe is on the lead lap in the 5th spot, right there amongst those two.
Yeah, it's kind of a race within a race, and Doug Kobe was the spoiler that time as he was able to get up on the back bumper of Myers and push him out of that battle with Goodale. Now Kobe is going around Myers on the bottom, as Kobe is one of those cars on the lead lap. Kobe in the 5th spot, now going to give chase to those other guys running up front. And the battle again will be between Myers and Goodale for that first car on the lead lap, as Kobe has cleared them.
And Ron Silk has been caught at the front of the field. Justin Bonsignor has run him down. Bonsignor is there, going for the lead into turn number 3. Bonsignor to the bottom makes it look easy as he takes over the top spot. Now Ryan Preece pulls up on the back bumper of the 85. Ronnie Silk, that is for the 2nd spot, as Patrick Emmerling is right there as well. Justin Bonsignor led so many of the early laps, fell into the field, now back to the front as he is trying to drive away from that 85 and Ron Silk. Ryan Preece right up against the back bumper, drops to the inside, trying to take that 2nd position away. Deep into turn number 3, he'll take the spot. Emmerling thought about following through, couldn't make that happen. Bonsignor and Ryan Preece trying to get away now. They will not do so. Silk pulls back up on the back bumper of Ryan Preece. Great racing amongst the front 4 as those 4 have checked out on the rest of the pack.
Yeah, they have for sure. They've hooked up and really pounding off some pretty quick laps here. As Bonsignor the leader, you've got Preece in 2nd spot. Silk back to 3rd. Patrick Emmerling is in the 4th spot. Doug Kobe is 5th. Bobby Santos is 6th. Chase Dowling is 7th. Tommy Catalano is 8th. And then the first car a lap down, Burt Myers in 9th. Eric Goodale rounds out the top 10. Good run again for Andy Seiss, though he's a lap down. He's in 11th. Anthony Nocella is 12th. Dave Zapienza, 13th. Woody Pitcat is 14th. And John McKennedy round out the top 15 spots. Again, that lead pack continues to grow the margin. Up in front, the train led by Justin Bonsignor. He's got a couple of lengths over Ryan Preece on the backstretch. Those front 4 have set sail. You got to go a ways back to Doug Kobe. We'd like to catch up and join them. And right behind Kobe comes Andy Seiss. Seiss is another one. As we said, he's had a great weekend so far, and he would really like to get up and pass Burt Myers to put himself in a position to be the first car a lap down. Myers in that number 11 is right behind Doug Kobe as they go down the backstretch. Here comes Eric Goodale. It's that race within a race, the race to be the first car a lap down. Those guys are providing a lot of excitement, all going on behind Doug Kobe as they race out of turn 4.
Very, very entertaining. The front 4 are doing a nice job with that battle for the first one lap down position. Just as exciting. They'll stretch things out just a little bit, running all by themselves as Justin Bonsignor continues to show the way. Ryan Preece 2nd, third is Ronnie Silk. Patrick Emmerling in fourth. And then in the fifth position, looks like it's Doug Kobe in the 2 cars. He is right in the middle of that battle of cars, trying to fight for that first lap down position. Myers, Seiss, Goodale, all right there together, having a race of their own.
2 leaders have really checked out now. Bonsignor in the 51 and Priest in the 77. They've put some room between themselves and Ron Silk. Silk and Emmerling in their own little battle for third and fourth. And then Kobe caught up in that battle for the cars that are trying to be the first car a lap out, in hopes that there's a caution and one of them can gain their lead lap back. The other guy that was up front for quite a while seems to have faded, but don't count him out, is Bobby Santos, who's currently running 7th on the lead lap. He's faded from the battles up front, but again, so much his style to save as much of the car as he can for the late stages of the race.
You know, we're at an interesting part of this race now. Inside 85 to go. That means everybody can make it here. When do pit stops start? Do guys try to pit early and get tires on the car? What sort of strategy plays can be played as everybody from this point in the race can make it to the end, assuming we don't have any overtime sort of situations, as the front 2 continue to go nose to tail. Justin Bonsignor, Ryan Priest, and once again, want to remind everybody, $100 a lap every time they cross the stripe. The leader gets an extra 100 laps, so some of these guys have really racked up a nice payday, and we're not even at the end of the race.
Patrick Emmerling has gotten around Ron Silk to take over the third spot. Silk in fourth. Kobe is fifth. Chase Dowling is sixth. Bobby Santos is seventh. Those are the cars on the lead lap. Eric Goodale has gotten around Burt Myers momentarily for that last spot a lap down. Kobe gives Goodale a little bit of a shove, but Goodale goes up the racetrack in the middle of turns 3 and 4, and Myers comes right back on the outside. Again, that's that race within a race. And then Doug Kobe, who is on the lead lap, and Chase Dowling.
Trying to look closely, but one of the folks here at the racetrack pointing out that there may be some damage on the front of that Santos machine. Really hard to tell, but almost looks like, yeah, the front nose piece, the piece that comes down behind the front bumper, off of the hood. It comes from the front of the hood down behind the front bumper and provides a way for air to get up over the hood of the race car, is flapping up. And as a result, he's losing some downforce, also gaining some drag. So that car, aerodynamically not what it was. He needs a pit stop for that team to come to the attention and maybe try to tape that piece down.
The front 2 again continue to pull away. Justin Bonsignor can't shake Ryan Priest. They're not exactly nose to tail, but they are running together. Patrick Emmerling all by himself in the third spot. Ron Silk all by himself in fourth. And then Doug Kobe and Chase Dowling mixed in with those cars that are a lap down. But again, they've kind of gotten into a pace, and I'm not going to say they're just riding around there, because they're still turning laps at the mid 29 seconds. But the point is that we're about to be 173 laps into it, and certainly want to save something for the end of this.
173 laps into it and still running qualifying speeds. I mean, this is unbelievable that these cars haven't given up more. It's a testament to the tires here that Hoosier has brought these things, just not giving up the way you would think a tire would. They've really done a nice job of putting a tire under these guys that they can really race. But you're right, those front 2 are gone. Justin Bonsignor and Ryan Priest absolutely checking out. but they cannot go to the end on fuel. Still going to need more fuel before this thing's over. Let's send it down to pit road and Joe.
Yeah, there's a couple of things at play at the moment. Fuel is one of them. We expect to see some of the leaders come down pit road around lap 185. About 10 laps from now, we'll see that final fuel stop of the day, and they'll try to make sure they've got time to get one more tire stop before the checkered flag goes, because they can't go the whole way on this one set of tires. One thing that has developed, if you notice, the Chase Dowling car isn't been as fast on this last run. The spoiler brace, the small little piece of metal that holds the spoiler up in the air, has flopped down and broke, and so they are trying to fashion a brand new sheet metal piece that they can use to hold that spoiler back up. They need it for the downforce getting through the turns, and that's one of the things that they're trying to repair on the 15 car for Chase Dowling. Meanwhile, some of the leaders on pit lane. Justin Bonsignore, one of the first on this round of pit stops to bring his crew down to the attention of the Ryan Stone-led crew. It'll be a quick splash of fuel. He was complaining that the car was a little bit loose when he got back to the throttle on corner exit. So it's just fuel, no adjustments on the 51 for Justin Bonsignore. The first can of fuel is in. They've got the second can of fuel going as well. Same thing for Ronnie Silk and his team. Very, very quick for that team. They only took one can of fuel, and they get Ronnie Silk back out onto the racetrack.
And they did some work. It appeared to be on the right rear of that car. One of the crew members down to the right rear of Silk's number 85, and he still was able to get out of there ahead of Justin Bonsignore. So this is going to change things up a little bit and make it interesting. Ryan Preece has inherited the lead in the number 77. That moves Patrick Emmerling up, and Chase Dowling to third, Doug Kobe to fourth, Bobby Santos to fifth. So at this point, those top five are making their way around. We'll see who else chooses to come down pit road. Doug Kobe just made a pass on Chase Dowling. That takes him up to the third spot. Kobe in the two, as we're now 178 of 250 laps completed here.
You know, it's interesting. Early in the race, Joe told us he talked to some of the drivers, and they said about lap 40, the tires started to give up a little bit. We're 75 laps into a 150-lap run. Two of the fastest guys in the racetrack come down to pit road and don't take tires. Do they think they can go the full 150, or are they counting on a late race caution for tires? Curious as to what the strategy might be on pit road, as those guys came in 75 lap, halfway into a 150-lap run, and took no tires, fuel only for Silk and Bonsignore.
For more information on those tires, let's go back to Joe.
Andy, the story of the day is that I don't think you can go 150 laps on one set of tires. Mainly the concern with these modifieds, because of the high speed you carry into the turn and you get to the gas so soon, that you really wear the right rear tire pretty heavily, because you put so much pressure on that when you get back to the accelerator. So it seems as though most of the tires can go the whole way, but the concern would be around the right rear tire on these modifieds and whether or not they can go without blistering. And that is one of the reasons why these teams will take the opportunity to scuff tires in practice, because what scuffing the tires does is it puts heat into the tire, and when it cools back down, it hardens. Think of this. When you use a bar of soap the first time out of the box, it's got a lot of suds to it. When you use it the second time, it doesn't sud up as good. Tires do the same thing. They get a little bit harder and they last a little bit longer. Some of the teams do that, but they say it's still not enough to carry them 150 laps.
That's good information. No, I'm a liquid soap guy, so I wouldn't know that, but I learned a couple things here today.
You know, it's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard soap and tires compared, and I was kind of wondering where he was going for that for a second. That's a really, really good comparison when you think about it. So evidently those front two that came down and took tires, they're looking at a late race caution, some sort of a late race stop to at least get a right rear on their cars for that run to the finish. So this is going to get interesting as we are inside 70 to go now.
Yeah, as they continue to click off the laps, Ryan Preece out in front. No takers to pit road, at least for the moment. Preece the leader. Patrick Emmerling is second. Doug Kobe is third. Chase Dowling is fourth. Bobby Santos is fifth. We're looking at about maybe lap 185 for the rest of the field to come down onto pit road, and it should get very interesting down there. So take a big breath there, Joe Koss, and a big drink of water, because we're going to send a bunch of guys your way here in just about 2 laps from now, as could be the final stop for these guys here in the Musket 250. Again, those 5 cars out in front on the lead lap. Then you've got Burt Myers in the number 11, first car a lap down. As we see some of the competitors moving to the bottom of the racetrack, and as predicted, here come some of the front runners down on pit road, including Patrick Emmerling, Doug Kobe, and Eric Goodale. Let's throw it back down to Joe.
Expected here, lap 185, to get that final splash of fuel that will take these teams to the finish. Of some of the cars on pit lane, one of the cars that was running toward the front of the field is the 07 car. Patrick Emmerling slides his car to a stop a bit ahead of where the crew wanted him to be. The fuel man had to walk about 5 feet before they could fuel in that 07 machine. Now, Patrick was complaining the car was a little tight on the front of the machine and that it was a little bit difficult on corner exit. And so they'll try to make a quick fuel stop here as he nearly collides with Eric Goodale on the exit of pit lane. Now, problems now for the Doug Kobe machine. Their handling has been really suffering on this last round of green flag run. They'll pack it full of fuel. Kobe stalls the car on exit of pit lane. They also took air pressure out of the right front tire for Doug Kobe, as his car, again, not handling the way they had hoped it would under that last green flag run.
So we see that action on pit road, and again, these cars will cycle around to get back to the running order. 187 of 250 laps complete. Ryan Preece continues to lead the thing, and I'll tell you that he has been fast all day long here today. In case you didn't know the story, he of course didn't practice or qualify the car yesterday. Gary Putnam did, because Ryan Preece was off racing his Xfinity car at Richmond. Drove all night to get back up here to compete today. So he is on a tear here right now with the lead in the number 77. Chase Dowling is second. Bobby Santos is third. Let's go to pit road again.
Doug Kobe is on pit lane to serve a penalty in this 2 car. They had too many men over pit wall. They are allowed 5 guys to go over pit road, but they had 1 guy doing the fuel, another guy doing the catch can, and 3 guys behind the car to help push it off pit lane. But they had 1 6th guy who was over there doing the air pressure adjustment on that 2 car, and it was 1 too many men. They had to come back down pit lane for a pass-through penalty, and a very costly mistake here with only 61 laps to go.
Yeah, terrible mistake for Doug Kobe on a year that just has going to be one that I think he wants to forget, and this only adds to it. Tough break for the defending champion, Doug Kobe, out there in the number 2. As we now have 60 laps to go in the Musket 250, and this is the point where it's getting interesting. Still, Preece, Dowling, Santos up on the lead lap. Then Burt Myers, as we've been mentioning, the first car a lap down. And he's been passed by Justin Bonsignor in the number 51. So again, we've got to see how this is all going to shake out after everybody comes in for their service. Next car on pit road and headed your way, Joe, is Timmy Solomito in the 16. He's had a tough day today.
Their problem stemmed from the fact that they had that penalty early in the race when the fuel can got dragged all the way around the racetrack. What happened was the fuel man, Adam Scavora, did not have a radio, and they told Timmy Solomito to go before he was clear of the race car, and it got jammed. The fuel can got jammed in for Solomito. They will make a quick chassis adjustment to the right front. They're also going in and making an adjustment to the wedge in the left side of the car. They've got it full of fuel. They've got the first can in. Now Adam Scavora will go ahead and put the second can of fuel in the 16 car for Timmy Solomito as the sun comes out in the ever-changing track conditions here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway come into play here midway through the event.
We'll watch for more cars to head to pit road, as we've got 193 of the 250 complete. And the leader remains Ryan Preece in the 77. Chase Dowling for second. Bobby Santos is third. actually running with Santos just a moment ago, and passing him was Doug Kobe in the number 2, but of course Kobe mired way in the back after that penalty just a couple of laps ago. Woody Pitkat is on pit road in the number 82, and again they'll cycle on through here for their running positions. A couple of more takers, including the leader down on pit road. Here comes Ryan Preece in the 77. Let's go to Joe.
Gary Putnam, the owner and the crew chief of this 77 here today, was wildly working the calculator to see exactly how far they could go. Remember, this is the team that has the built open motor, meaning they can get about 110 miles of fuel out of this particular race car, so they can go a lot further than anybody else. They're on pit road. They're going to go ahead and make their adjustments now, get some fuel in that 77 car for Ryan Preece, and send him back out onto the racetrack. Now, they still have at least one more stop, most likely to come down to get tires on this race car, but we'll see how that strategy plays out. As we've talked about, just about everybody will still need to come for that. Still, a few more takers yet to come down pit lane, including the 16 car of Timmy Solomito. Now, this is a change in strategy, not something that we have seen among the other contenders so far. This team's going to come down pit road and make their green flag tire stop. Almost all the teams told us before the race began today that the last thing you want to do on race day is change tires under green flag conditions. But if you look at how we run the Cup races here in New Hampshire, usually the first guy to complete his service at the end of the day and get everything, tires and fuel, is the guy that ends up in victory lane. Keep an eye on what Kyle Busch has done in the past. And so they are going to go ahead and make a 4-tire sticker tire change on Timmy Solomito's number 16 car and completely change the strategy on everybody. The question is, how many laps are they going to go down after 2 consecutive pit stops, and how much speed can they gain with this brand new Hoosier tires? It's a different strategy. We'll see if it plays out.
And they're going to hope that the caution flag doesn't come out, as they have just completed the service on that number 16. He is down and away, making his way off of pit road. So we'll see how that plays out for Timmy Solomito. He's not had a good day so far today. We'll see if maybe that changes. Woody Pitkat is back on pit road in the number 82 and headed to his stall down here just beyond the start-finish line. They too will go for tires on the number 82. Also on pit road, the 54 of Tommy Catalano. They're making a tire change on that car as well. So some of these guys are gambling, hoping that they won't run into a caution flag and making these tire changes under green. Let's go back to Joe.
It might be a case of monkey see, monkey do for many of these teams. The more cars that come down pit lane and take this opportunity to get tires only helps the drivers that have employed this strategy. So the same thing being played out here as we approach lap 200 for Woody Pitkat and his team, along with the 16 car. Meanwhile, the race leader is on pit road, and that's the 15 car of Chase Dowling. Remember, we talked about how they had that problem with the spoiler that was not being held up in the air properly, and they are not going to try to fix that right now. They're just going to go ahead and put fuel in it. They'll take a look at it while they put fuel in the car, but they don't have any tools or the piece that they fabricated down here on pit lane to see if they can make any improvements. Also on pit road is the 44 car of Bobby Santos. Smoke billowing off the right front of that machine where the brakes he got on it, getting down onto pit lane. He's going to exit pit lane right as Ronnie Silk is coming on pit road. Silk has to climb onto the binders, and he'll bring his car down to the attention of his crew. It'll be tires for Ronnie Silk. His car was handling very, very strongly, and if you look at this Whelen Modified Tour field, he is one of the only drivers in the field that has Thompson 300 experience, one of the other long-distance races that's no longer run on the Whelen Modified Tour. And Silk has always been a driver that's very good at Loudon, a 2-time winner, but also is known for his long-run speed. So it's no surprise to see him running toward the front of the field so far. They will take right-side tires so far on the 85 car, and it'll be just a 2-tire stop for Ronnie Silk.
And we saw when Bobby Santos came to pit road, we pointed out earlier that he too was having a problem with the front part of the body on that car, and that's what they immediately went to work on while he was down there. And he pointed out that smoke coming off the right front of the 44. He smoked the tires getting out of there too. So Bobby Santos is down and back out on the racetrack right now, being scored in the 5th spot. we have Ryan Preece back in the lead in the number 77. Justin Bonsignor running second. Patrick Emmerling is third. Chase Dowling in the fourth spot. Bobby Santos rounding out the top five. Again, with all these pit stops, we'll have to see how things start to shake out. But right now, the leader being scored as the number 77 of Ryan Preece. And he is well out in front as he's now making his way off the fourth turn in the number 77. Second place, Justin Bonsignor, is just now in the middle of 3 and 4. Got to go a ways back to Chase Dowling in the number 15. And behind him, Patrick Emmerling. The guy that's passing a lot of race cars out there is Timmy Solomito in the 16. He's the one with the 4 sticker tires, and he's using them up as he's clipping off some laps and gaining some ground. Let's go back to find out a little more about our leader. Here's Joe.
You know, one thing you just have to remember with this Ryan Preece number 77 car, the motor that Gary Putnam decided to put in this race car is not the top choice for many of these teams, but they thought it would be good for the endurance. Literally, this is a motor that most people have mothballed. It's literally in the museum down the road, but they put it in this race car thinking that they could win races with it, especially here today in the Musket 250. Keep that strategy in mind as the race goes on. It's a remarkable approach and a remarkable story if Ryan Preece is able to win with Gary Putnam's race car and a motor that is not the prime choice for these NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour teams. On pit lane, Robbie Summers in the 64 car. One can of fuel for the 64. He's down and away.
Well, Ryan Preece, of course, can make history by winning the first ever Musket 250 here at New Hampshire and make some history with that engine under the hood of the 77. And right now, he's got 43 laps to get it done, and he's got himself a sizable lead. It's just about 9 seconds over Justin Bonsignor. So you can see how the pit strategy has played into the running order of this event. We had these guys running nose to tail for so many laps, and now Ryan Preece has an 8.3 second lead over Justin Bonsignor. And Bonsignor's got about 7 seconds over Chase Dowling, who's running in the third spot. So they are pretty well spread out. Those guys up front keeping their gloved fingers crossed that we don't get a caution flag.
Joe talked early in the race about the fact that these teams don't necessarily practice pit stops all that much. You watch the races on TV as Eric Goodale makes his way down pit road. You watch the races on TV, and the teams are clicking off 12, 13, 14-second pit stops, but they practice every single day. They have dedicated pit crews. These guys are the guys that they find out in the garage, working on the cars, hanging out. Hey, you want to go to New Hampshire and pit a car? Yeah, absolutely. They find a fire suit that kind of sort of fits them, a helmet that maybe fits them, and here they are on the pit crew as we send things down to Joe.
That's a great point, Andy, as Eric Goodale is on pit road to take right side tires only. The fastest pit crew on the Whelen Modified Tour consistently all season long has been that of the 51 team of Justin Bonsignor. But what's interesting is that the team is really, the crew guys are based on Long Island, but the cars are kept at the Ryan Stone shop, who's the crew chief up in Milford, Connecticut. Now, it's just a short ferry ride to get from Long Island to Milford, Connecticut. You get off the ferry in Bridgeport, and you're basically right at the race shop. But they don't have a lot of time to be able to do that pit crew practice, and that's something that's put these teams to the test today. And I got to say that these guys did a really nice job managing all of that, because these cars are very difficult to do pit stops on. If you look at the wheels on these modifieds, they're very, very large, and what they do is the lug nuts are on the extreme outside, almost all the way up against the sidewall of the tire. If you look at your passenger car at home, they're within about a 5-inch radius at the hub of the wheel, so it makes it really challenging to do a quick pit stop in these Whelen Modified Tour cars. But for teams that don't have a lot of practice and haven't worked on the choreography of doing a quick pit stop, we've seen very, very clean work on pit road throughout the afternoon.
The other piece that's a huge challenge on these cars is the wheels are very, very deep. On a Cup car or an Xfinity car, the lug nuts are right there in your face. These wheels are extraordinarily deep. It It's very hard to get to them. The other problem is the coil-over shock absorbers. It's very tough to get to them to make an adjustment. You have to actually jack the car up to make an adjustment. So everything much more difficult on these cars from a pit stop perspective. Joe?
On pit lane again is John McKennedy. It'll be a quick one tank fuel and gas for him. Back out onto the racetrack. A nice recovery for John McKennedy and this team, because yesterday in practice sessions they had an engine problem where the car was going down the end of the straightaway and it would basically bog when it got up to about 7,000 RPM and would slowly start to lose speed at the end of these long straightaways. Yesterday, before qualifying, they went through and replaced the carburetor, put a new ignition box in it, new distributor, replaced as much of the ignition system as they could. That didn't solve the issue. This morning they worked to pull some of the foam out of the fuel cell. They cleaned the entire fuel cell, put a brand new fuel pump in, replaced a lot of the lines of the car to get it to where they needed it to be. And then when they went under the green flag today, it was very smooth and they got past the mechanical problems they suffered through all weekend long. So they've had a nice recovery and still have a pretty good run in that 7 New York car for John McKennedy, but it took a lot of work to get there.
Well, after all the pit stops that we saw, our best friend is the scoring pylon here in the middle of the infield here at New Hampshire to keep track of where everybody is running, because they're so spread out at this point. Ryan Preece still has a 7.5 second lead over Justin Bonsignor. And then you got to go like 10 seconds back to Chase Dowling in the 15. So we've got them spread out all over the race track, and now it'll determine whether some of these guys running up front are going to come for tires or not. We've got 2:15 of 250 completed out here, and Ryan Preece continues to lead, setting a torrid pace in that number 77.
Preece out to about a 7.5 second lead over Justin Bonsignor, as Bonsignor, one of the fastest race cars on the track all day long, finds himself in a position of playing catch-up, hoping for a caution, but got to plan on not having one. Is all Bobby Santos off the pace on the back straightaway. The 44 car, the Tino machine, off the pace as he makes his way down the infield road course portion of things. Over in 3 and 4, he'll come to pit road, as we will look to find out what the problems might be on that Bobby Santos number 44.
Bobby Santos came on the radio just a moment ago thinking that he either has a suspension problem or a flat tire on that 44 car. So the engine is running. The crew gets up on the wall to go ahead and grab tires and start with the right side to see if they can get it. They are not able to identify a flat, though, from what they can see so far. Somehow the crew came down to pit lane with the yellow flag out. They'll now go ahead and take right side tires only for Bobby Santos and try to get him back out onto the racetrack.
Well, this changes everything, as we say, with the caution flag coming out. Santos on pit road. They elected to go for the right side tires, and some of the urgency on that pit stop as they look at the right rear of the car. I did see the car kind of bouncing when he pulled off the racetrack in the middle of the backstretch and basically went on one of the road course roads over there in turn 3. And as he pulled off the racetrack and went in, the car had a pretty good bounce to it. So it might be more than just tires. They're looking at the right rear of the 44. And in fact, the crew is pushing it back. So let's find out from Joe what's going on down there.
Yeah, more work being done on the Bobby Santos machine as the crew has basically walked away from the race car. We'll go ahead and get an update on that momentarily. Wanted to give you an update on some of the cars that have already come down pit lane and what we're about to see down here on this very critical late race pit stop. Some of the cars that have not yet come in for tires include the guys like Doug Coby in the 2 car and the 77 car of Ryan Preece. Those who have come down pit lane, well, it looks like they're going to stay out the rest of the way. The 85 car of Ronnie Silk, Justin Bonsignor and his team. And even though we've seen the 16 car of Timmy Solomito on and off pit road, well, they're probably going to come down and get pit tires as well here, as they've got their crew up on pit road. Along with the 15 car of Chase Dowling, they're going to try to get some new rubber on that automobile. Should be a very interesting round of pit stops and could be a race-deciding stop for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour teams.
Yes, very interesting. It'll be 220 of the 250 laps when they get back around here. And the longest race in the history of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour turns into the length of a good old Saturday night shootout here, as we'll have 30 laps to go, and it'll be less than that when we get back to green flag racing. So believe me, you could not have written this script, Andy, as we are about to see an unbelievable finish to this thing.
So we all came into this race with some preconceived notions here as the cars are on pit road. None of them have come true. Zero. Here's the cars on the lead lap. That's right. They're all on pit road. There are 5 cars on the lead lap coming down to the end of this thing, and look who they are. Ryan Preece, Bert Myers. Joe, down to you.
It looks like it'll be a 3-tire stop for Justin Bonsignor as they try to get the right side tires and the left rear tire changed for them. It'll also be 3 tires for the 15 car of Chase Dowling. Now, the 07 car, Patrick Emmerling, they wanted one more pit stop at the end of this thing to try to fix the problems that they had. Again, he was a little bit tight on corner exit when he got back to the accelerator. It'll be a 4-tire stop as Jan Leedy, former modified ace himself, calling the shots for the 07 car of Patrick Emmerling. Also on pit road, the 11 car, Bert Myers. It'll be right side tire work for him, but the fastest pit crew wins the day. Justin Bonsignor, they've been rocketing off pit lane all season long. Chase Dowling out second. Then it goes Ryan Preece and the rest of the field on this final pit stop of the day.
All weekend long, we've been talking about the history being made here at the Speedway with this race. And part of the history we talked about was the fact that Bobby Santos was going to win 4 in a row as he won here the last 3 modified races at New Hampshire. It won't be today. He's out of the car and talking to his crew down there on pit road. Let's find out more, Joe.
Well, Bobby Santos is out of that number 44 car after a problem here. He's going to hop on the safe side of pit wall here after getting out of that race car. But Bobby had a very, very good car. He had a very good car throughout the day today. What eventually put you out?
Yeah, we had a good car. We were just trying to put ourselves in position for the end, but I think we blew up the rear end. Disappointing, but that's the way it goes.
Ironically enough, Bobby Santos and this team, although they won the race here in July, they actually broke the rear end after the checkered flag. They had to repair it, and they barely made that victory, and that'll claim them again here today. Also, now we've got some more activity on pit lane, among them the 64 car of Robbie Summers. The 07 car has had a very, very long trip on pit lane, and that is Patrick Emmerling. And so it's been a pretty busy round of pit stops here on pit lane.
Yeah, interesting about Emmerling in the 07. He's been in contention here, running in the top 5 most of the afternoon, and an elongated stop, as you mentioned there, Joe, as the leaders come across behind the Toyota pace car to click off lap 222 of 250 and kind of reset the running order, if you will, as another one of the front-running cars is on pit road and headed your way, Joe. That's the 85 of Ron Silk.
Yeah, those guys had already come down pit lane under the green flag to get some service on that automobile, and they did come back down pit road again. They're going to go ahead and just top it off full of fuel. They were one of the teams that came in a bit earlier than others. They came in on lap number 175. They got fuel only, and they only took 1 can of fuel. So this is a bit of an insurance policy for the 85 of Ronnie Silk to make sure that they can make it to the end in case this race were to go to overtime. And boy, we have seen that before here when the modifieds run at New Hampshire.
That is for sure, and we're going to have to get set on the running order when NASCAR timing and scoring gets them back out and in their proper running orders here, as we have some cars that, again, a number of cars that remain a lap down, and they'll have to take the first car a lap down and allow that car to go back and join the rear of the field. It looks like it's going to be Andy Seiss in the 57. Let's go to Joe again.
Well, Gary Putnam getting ready to go back under the green flag. You're riding second right now. You've got that different strategy with a different power plant. Has it worked the way you wanted to so far?
Well, it's kept us on the lead lap and got a lot of cars a lap down. So it's right now it's working all right. We'll see what happens here. We got 4 really good cars left on the lead lap, so it'll be a good shootout.
All right, that's Gary Putnam, former winning car chief in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series with Jamie McMurray, both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400. He's trying to capture one here with driver Ryan Preece and that different strategy. The question is, we know it's good on the long run speed. How fast can he be for the final 27 laps of the Musket 250?
Well, settle into your seats because this is going to be a wild one when we get back to the green flag this time. The New Hampshire Motor Speedway Toyota pace car makes its way off the track and onto pit road. They are into restart zone, and the green flag is in the air. This time the outside row gets the jump, and that's Justin Bonsignor in the 51 as he'll lead them down into turn one.
Yeah, and it wasn't that Justin Bonsignor was so good. It was that Ryan Preece had no help. Burt Myers couldn't get up there and give him the shove that Bonsignor had from Emmerling. So now Bonsignor out in front as they head for turn number 3, about 4 or 5 car lengths out in front, as he is absolutely flying right now. That team made the right adjustments on that 51 as he is out in front. Emmerling in second, Ryan Preece in third.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of defense out there as Patrick Emmerling was trying to protect the bottom, particularly on the backstretch, to hold up Ryan Preece. But this time, Preece was able to get underneath and pry his way into the second spot. Emmerling comes right back and gets on the back bumper of the 77, and those two will try to hook up and reel in that leader who continues to run away. Talking about Bonsignor in the 51, he'll lead him by about 8 car lengths across the stripe. Then it's the bumper-to-bumper run for Preece and Emmerling, and diving down to the bottom of the racetrack is Chase Dowling, trying to advance by going to the bottom of the racetrack, down underneath Burt Myers. That is a race for the 4th spot.
Couple of interesting stories there. Burt Myers, the Southern modified superstar who's won everything in sight in the southern half of the country, never had a lot of luck when he comes up here to the Northeast. Chase Dowling lost the spring race here by about the width of a fingernail, so he is looking for a little bit of redemption. Those two run 4th and 5th behind that triumvirate of Bonsignor, as well as Preece and Chase Emmerling, rounding out the top 3.
Down the backstretch, Bonsignor still with that lead, although it's shrunk to about 5 or 6 car lengths now, as Preece has Emmerling with him and Chase Dowling has caught up with those 3. So 2nd, 3rd, and 4th running together in a freight train, trying to catch the leader. And they are closing on Bonsignor as they go down into turn 1.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th right together. Now Preece breaks away a little bit as he tries to run down Bonsignor. Preece with a better fuel mileage motor, but not the better horsepower motor. Bonsignor has that better spec engine as he is out in front. Preece going to have to try to figure out a way to round as he is down on horsepower. They have broken away now from that 3rd place car of Emmerling. Dowling right there, as well as Myers, and then it's Andy Seiss. Looks like Seiss would be the final car. No, Seiss the first car 1 lap down in that 57 car.
Yeah, as they work their way down the backstretch, Preece had gotten up to the back bumper of Bonsignor, but loses a little bit out of it out of turn 2. And those two trying to hook up together to get away from the rest of the field. But now Chase Dowling on the move. He is reeling in Ryan Preece as they come down the front stretch. Don't count out Patrick Emmerling. And here comes the 85 of Ron Silk getting back into the mix. He gets around the Seiss car as again trying to keep track of who's on the lead lap and who's a lap down. Right now, you see the front 3, 4, 5 cars all running in position. Doug Coby as well in the 6th spot. And here comes Preece with a move on Bonsignor down into turn 1. Ryan Preece makes the move, slides up in front of Bonsignor. Bonsignor with the crossover, tries to go to the bottom, no room to make the pass. He'll follow with the 77 of Preece, just get right up on the back bumper. He brings Chase Dowling with him and Patrick Emmerling right there. Those front 4 cars, nose to tail out of turn 4.
We've talked all day long about the strategy of this race, the strategy on the part of the teams. Now it's the strategy of the drivers. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be first? Do you want to be second? Outside? Inside? So much going to go in the last 18 laps of this race. Right now, it's Ryan Preece, the Xfinity Series driver, out in front. Justin Bonsignor, the points leader and probable champion, right there behind him. Then it's the young gun, Chase Dowling, in 3rd. You see that 85 up there in the mix. He's actually 2 laps down as Ron Silk. Tough deal for him as he is a very, very fast race car. But the 5th place car right now is the 11 of Burt Myers.
Again, leaders go nose to tail through that 1st and 2nd turn. 233 of the 250 laps have been completed. And the leaders trying to get away from Chase Dowling, who runs in third. Patrick Emmerling is fourth. Burt Myers is fifth. Doug Kobe is sixth. Andy Seiss is seventh. You see all those cars right together going down into turn one.
Off of turn number 2 now. Justin Brian Priest shows the way. Bonsignor right on his back bumper. Bonsignor drops to the inside now. As they make their way to turn number 3, Bonsignor will make the pass. That'll kick Brian Priest back into the second spot. Chase Dowling runs in third. Again, it's all about positioning your race car. Where do you want to be? Priest back to the back bumper of Bonsignor. Is he trying to make the pass, or is he trying to get those two separated from Chase Dowling? Dowling now pulls up to the back bumper of Priest as they go single file down the back straightaway. Patrick Emmerling is fourth, and it's a couple of cars back to Burt Myers as caution is on the speedway. Caution on the racetrack. We've got one backed into the wall over between turns 1 and 2. Almost looks like Andy Seiss. Not sure. It's a red race car.
Well, we get the
It's
75
not
of Chris Pastriak up there and the 14 of Blake Barney.
There you go.
Also up against the wall. So we are under caution here. Lap 236 of 250. So they'll re-rack them for the restart.
Blake Barney's car with front end damage. Chris Pastriak's car with heavy back end damage. So tough break for those two drivers.
Let's go down to the pits, and here's Joe Koss.
Yeah, hanging out in the crew with the 51 team of Justin Bonsignor. Ryan Stone is calling the shots. Ryan, you've had a dream season so far. 7 wins and now in position to win the biggest race of the year. How do you feel about your chances in the closing laps?
We've definitely got a good shot at it. We've had a great car all day. Justin's been driving the heck out of it. The guys here on pit road, it's been a test for everybody on pit road today. They've done a great job. You know, it's going to be a shootout, and Priest is always tough, so we'll just have to see. The draft is a big player here, so you just got to be smart with that, and hopefully we can come out on top.
I can't let you tip your hand, but if you're coaching your driver around this racetrack and you got 1 lap to go, do you want to be in the lead considering the draft, or would you rather be in the second spot and have the opportunity to take them down to the checkers?
I always want to be leading.
All right, that's the story from Ryan Stone. Now, I asked his driver the same question earlier in the day today. He said, I want to be second with 2 to go. I want to be in the lead when we come to the white flag. So we'll see if that plays out and if that strategy remains the same. Now, one thing that this red flag is going to do here, guys, is that it's going to bring the 2 car of Doug Kobe back into play here. Now, they could not come down pit lane and get tires under that last caution flag because they did get the beneficiary lucky dog. And so they've got tires up on the wall, and they are going to try to make at least one last change. Remember, we talked about that 12 set of tires and that some teams would take the opportunity, if this situation were to arise, to put on 4 tires at the end. Well, we're going to see that too here, and they're only going to be back in the 6th position when they get back under the green flag. So still a lot of stories left to play out here today in the Musket 250.
And to think that all those stories to be run in the last dozen laps or so is pretty interesting. And of course, you know, the fun doesn't stop when the race is over. We got a big party going on down in the fan zone, down in the infield, that we invite you to join just a few minutes after the conclusion of the race. The gates will open up here so that you can get down there, and also through the tunnel over on the second turn. The post-race party after the race, celebrate with the post-race party and live music from the Rory Scott Band, the beer garden, and more. All the carnival rides and games and fun down in the infield immediately following the race. Let's go back to Joe.
Yeah, down here in the Chase Dowling pit, they have been strong all day long. One of the youngest crew chiefs on pit road is a driver himself in the modified division at Stafford Speedway. It's Stephen Kopchik. Stephen, you have guided your driver to a very competitive race in uncharted territory for you as a crew chief and he as a driver. Now we are in the closing laps. Do you have enough left in that 15 car to challenge and go up there and get the win today?
Yeah, myself as well as the team that we got put us in the position we're in. We're sitting pretty good. He says he's comfortable with the car. We have a good car for the last 10, 15 laps whenever we go green, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Knowing that you lost this race in July by only 4 thousandths of a second, did you guys review what happened in the positioning of where you want to be in the closing stages?
Yeah, that was just a combination of, you know, the top 3 cars were about equal, and it was just hardcore racing to the end. And I think you're going to see the same thing here. So hopefully we just be at the right spot at the right time and come out on top like Santos did on July race.
All right, that's Steven Kopchik. We'll let him get back to work. The story of this team is these two young drivers, both guys 20 or under. Chase Dowling, 20 years old, went to high school with Steven Kopchik. They both work on the house chassis LFR car, prepare it. These two guys work on it day in and day out. The youngest combination, they're second in the championship points. They have not yet got a win in the Whelen Modified Tour, and they hope to be able to do that here today. They've had a very good race car, and they're right in the running to see if they can make something happen before the end of this Musket 250.
Now, this is the race that you want to win for sure, as it has been nothing but exciting all afternoon long here. We're glad you're with us at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. A reminder that, you can get online and get your tickets for next season. The NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series returns in July to the Magic Mile, and you might want to get your tickets now for sure as part of the great celebration of NASCAR that will be going on here at New Hampshire in 2019, as already clicking off some months here and close to turning the calendar to the month of October, and always a fun time here in the fall when we come back to the Magic Mile. We're under the red flag so that the safety crews can do the cleanup over there in the first and second turn unimpeded by the cars going around. So they are stopped over there on the third turn area. Of course, stopping these race cars sometimes doesn't benefit the car as much as it benefits the driver, while they get a little bit of a breather there and can kind of reset themselves for the sprint to the finish. But you cool off the tires, you cool off the racetrack, and it can make a difference, particularly in this last bit of a sprint. Joe's tracked down another crew chief on pit road. Joe?
That's Jan Leedy. He's a crew chief for Patrick Emmerling. And Jan, you told me a little while ago that you wanted to get your tires. You got them, and now you're in position here at the end of the race. For a part-time team to come out and compete at this level when you come to New Hampshire, what does that mean for this organization?
Well, it does, give us a source of pride, but, we're all just racers here. We race a lot. We're going to be racing again tomorrow over in Buffalo, and we work hard at it, so we expect to do well.
Now, you had some adjustments that you wanted to make for Patrick based on the handling of the race car. Did those adjustments seem to improve the handle under that last green flag run?
Well, we've got better from the beginning of the race to the middle of the race, but at the very end here, we're not exactly where we want to be. So we may still make one more move.
And with the sun setting, how much does the shadow impact the handle?
It will, but I think the race will be over before it's a major factor.
All right, that's Jan Leedy, a very talented driver in his own right, but he calling the shots for Patrick Emmerling. They've got their guy in position. Emmerling, a few years ago, put his name on the map when he won at the Bristol Motor Speedway, and he is always pretty competitive here at New Hampshire. He showed that here today and is right in the thick of it for the win.
Yeah, Jan Leedy knows how to get the victory lane. As you said, did it himself back in 2002, and also a winner here in the NASCAR Modified Tour back in 1997. So certainly knows his way around the Magic Mile for sure. And as you said, or as he had said, adjustments not quite where they want to be going into the last few laps of this race. So this will certainly be interesting. It looks like the safety crews are finishing up their cleanup over there in the first and second turn, and we'll get back to the caution flag before we turn them loose for the conclusion of the running of the Musket 250 here at New Hampshire. Let's go back to pit road.
A few years ago in the Northeast, Burt Meyer's name became very popular with the reality show The Madhouse. Today, he's running at New Hampshire Motor Speedway and running real well in Eddie Harvey's number 11. Eddie, you've got your car in position to win. Can a Southern boy steal the biggest prize on the Northern schedule today?
I think we can if everything goes our way. We're going to make one more adjustment here as soon as we can get the cars rolling before we go green, and I think it'll be the way to go. But I do think we have a shot.
While you sit there under the caution flag, any concern as a car sits there? It's been running all afternoon long, and now you're paused out on the racetrack. What does that do for the race car?
Nothing. It's actually a good thing. Cool it down a little bit, bring the temperature down on the motor, add a little bit more power. We'll be all right.
All right, that's Eddie Harvey. He is the car owner and the crew chief for the 11 car, Burt Meyers. And the reason why I asked that question is they were concerned a little bit about that engine temperature. The oil temp's getting up a little bit higher, but they said, you know what, 25 grand on the line, don't worry about it. Just drive it.
caution flag is back out on the racetrack and get them back in line behind the Toyota pace car. And again, the story continues to be that since we had that caution before this one, that we're able to close the field up so dramatically. This is going to be extremely interesting when we go back to green. It'll be 200. We'll be right around the 240 mark when we get back to green flag racing.
The interesting piece here, the thing that I think we can't overlook is the red flag. The fact that those cars sat there. You talked a little bit about it a few minutes ago. Joe talked a little bit about it on pit road. The tires change. The racetrack is changing. The temperatures change. These cars are very sensitive to tire pressures and tire temperatures. That has all changed now. These cars could be very similar. They could be very, very different. And it could all be different from car to car to car. So this could be a very interesting restart for these 6 or 7 guys we're going to have back on the lead lap when we go back to green as the cars head down pit road now.
We've got a couple of takers on pit road of the 6 cars that are still on the lead lap. Some of them coming down for one more round of pit stops. We talked about Jan Leedy. He wanted to come in and just make one more adjustment. They're going to put right side tires only on the 07 car. Now, a little bit of a different strategy for the 11 of Burt Myers. They're going to put rear tires. To your point, Andy, that the size of the rear tires and the temperature is so critical to the performance of these automobiles. They'll take the opportunity to put some tires on it now. A clean pit stop for Patrick Emmerling and the gang. They will get off of pit road. Doug Kobe and his team of the Mayhew Tools number 2 is on pit road. They're going to try to put 4 tires and go for the money here at the end. They're making a nice, easy, slow pit stop knowing that everybody else is only taking 2 tires. They're going to work to get this car right and get Kobe back out onto the racetrack. You know, one thing that I know you guys are up inside the booth today, but the temperature here at New Hampshire is starting to change quite a bit with the sun dipping behind the grandstand, the cloud cover starting to come in. You can feel the air temperature going down. Now the track still has a lot of heat in it from the sun throughout the day, but what's going to happen is these engines are going to make more horsepower with the cooler air, which could make it tricky to handle when they get off these turns. So the drivers have a lot to think about when they get ready to go back under the green flag.
Well, thanks for that weather update there, Joe. You're right. We wouldn't have known it up here in the booth. We got our producer, Yasmin, who's been running the air conditioning for us here this afternoon. And she's kept it pretty cool in here.
I didn't realize Joe was a meteorologist. I mean, crack announcer, great pit road guy, and now meteorologist. Correct. Congratulations on the new degree, Joe.
Yeah, he's a drag racer, too. You should ask him about that sometime. Guy's got a pretty heavy right foot for sure. Well, we're going to see some pretty heavy right feet here when the green flag comes out next time around. It'll be lap 240 and 10 to go of the scheduled distance of the Musket 250 here at New Hampshire. Lights are off on the pace car, indicating we'll go back to green flag racing next time. And when we get back here to the line, it'll be that continuation of the battle between Ryan Preece, who's never won a points race here at New Hampshire and would like to score it here this afternoon as they make their way out of turn 4 into the restart zone. Green flag is in the air, and once again that outside row gets the jump down into turn 1. That means Justin Bonsignor will lead him to there.
John McKennedy's car did not come up to speed. He tumbles through the field all the way to the back of the pack, but out in front, Justin Bonsignor. That car absolutely flying here on the restart. Patrick Emmerling up to second. Preece now battles back on the inside, side by side for that second spot. Preece going to slide up in front of Emmerling. No, Emmerling with a big drive off. Preece falling through the field now. Preece is in trouble as he is back to 6th or 7th spot.
That's what happens when you don't have a dance partner with you. He's got nobody in that draft with him, and the outside line just rocketed on back as they head down the backstretch. Emmerling to second with a good push from Doug Kobe. Kobe looks to the inside, makes a move down into turn 3, gets around Emmerling and will slide up in front of him. Now, the defending champion of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour going after the current point leader and probable champion of 2018, Justin Bonsignor. They're going to duke it out for the lead here as Emmerling stays right on the back bumper. Doug Kobe, they head out of turn 2.
Look at that 4th place runner, young Chase Dowling, with the young crew chief. That dynamic duo right there in the thick of this thing. They run in the 4th spot as that battle for second continues. Emmerling to the bottom, up the hill just a little bit. He'll take over the 2nd spot as they make their way down the front straightaway. Kobe back. Now here comes Ryan Priest to the inside. Priest going to work his way to the back bumper of Emmerling, try to help him forward. Out in front, Bonsignor all by himself. Burt Myers in trouble, has to get out of the throttle. He'll gather it up and continue, but loses a couple of spots. Priest now to the back bumper of Emmerling as they head for turn number 3. Those two going to try to get clear and chase down Justin Bonsignor, who leads the way off turn number 4 as we come to 6 to go.
Yeah, Doug Kobe got to shove up the racetrack, and he has drop kicked back several spots as he found himself bouncing off one of the cars that were passing him on the inside. And again, he's way back now in the number 2. Tough break as he's out of the mix. Bonsignor the leader. Emmerling trying to hook up with Priest on the back bumper, and don't count out Chase Dowling. He's right in the thick of it too.
Yeah, Dowling doing a really nice job being smart. They are not getting up into the fray there just yet. He knows there's still 5 laps to go. Emmerling pushing Priest as they try to run down Bonsignor. Priest right to the back bumper of Bonsignor now. Gets away from Emmerling, so Bonsignor going to drive away down the back straightaway. That 51 car, very fast, but he's got 2 guys working together into turn number 3. Priest to the front of the pack off the front bumper of Patrick Emmerling. Emmerling gave Priest a huge shove into turn number 3.
Yeah, rocketed him right underneath Bonsignor, but Bonsignor hangs right there on the back bumper. Those 3 guys nose to tail down into turn number 1, and they'll race around out of turn 2 on the backstretch, and anything goes.
4 laps to go down the back straightaway. Ryan Priest out in front. Bonsignor in 2nd. Emmerling in 3rd. Keep in mind, the block comes into play here. That's been a problem in the past where the leader tries to block the 2nd place guy, and it causes a melee here at the end. Out in front, Ryan Priest will lead the field to turn number 1 with 3 to go.
3 laps to go. The crowd on their feet here at New Hampshire as they follow this battle for the lead off of turn 2 and down the backstretch. Right now, Priest has it, and keeping an eye in that rear view mirror to see where Justin Bonsignor is going to go. Emmerling is right with him. Chase Dowling. They're all running right together here out of turn 4, coming around to get just 2 laps to go.
248 laps later, top 3 under a blanket. 4th place right there as well. Can Dowling get up there and contend? Out in front, it's Ryan Priest, the Xfinity veteran. Can he use that experience to his benefit? Right behind him, the points leader, the guy who has dominated 2018, going to the front now. Down into turn number 3, Emmerling will push Bonsignor past Priest. Priest will have to settle into 2nd as they come to the white flag.
Yeah, now Bonsignor's got to go on defense as Priest, with a head of steam out of turn 4, looks to the bottom. They go under the white flag, down into turn 1.
Bonsignor out in front, Priest in 2nd. Emmerling could decide this thing between those 2 as they head down the back straightaway. Can Priest get back to Bonsignor? Bonsignor blocks to the bottom. Priest all the way to the apron. They touch, they lean, up the hill they go. Here comes Chase Dowling.
Another surprising finish to the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Coming across the stripe, Chase Dowling gets redemption in the September race and wins it in the number 15. Meanwhile, those other 2 came together going into turn 3. We saw this in July, plays out again here today, and Chase Dowling is the lucky recipient of that battle going into the final 2 turns. Let's go to Joe, who's got the crew chief.
Well, Stephen Kopchik, so close in July. Now you and your high school buddy win the biggest race, your first ever win as a crew chief and his first as a driver. Describe the moment.
It's unbelievable. That was unexpected. He went into turn 3, freaking 3rd. It's because of these guys right here. It's because of these guys, Rob Fuller and LFR and 1540, and everyone that supports us allows us to do this. That's why just very fortunate.
That's Stephen Kopchik. He and Chase Dowling are going to Sunoco Victory Lane, winners of the Musket 250.
And a couple of cars that didn't quite make it. One limps across the finish line. That is Ryan Preece with that broken number 77. Boy, oh boy, they got into it up there in the third turn. And when you're driving that hard, and Justin Bonsignor through the block, there was no doubt that that's what he was going to do and what he had to do, totally blocking the bottom. But Ryan Preece wasn't about to accept that and got into the back of the 51. They both drifted up the racetrack and finally got hooked together and ended up in the wall. That allowed Chase Dowling to scoot on past to take the win. An unbelievable finish. Great run for Patrick Emmerling, who finishes in the second spot. Burt Myers comes through for third. Andy Seiss in the fourth spot. As the cars on the lead lap, the final car, and one of the reasons Ryan Preece coming down to limp across the line is he'll end up with a fifth place finish as the last car on the lead lap. So we'll hear from some of these drivers, we'll hear from some of these crew chiefs, and of course we'll hear from the winner in Victory Lane as well. As once again, as we've said all day, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour never disappoints when they come here. As again, the finishing order: Chase Dowling, Patrick Emmerling, Burt Myers, Andy Seiss was fourth, and of course Ryan Preece coming across the line with a damaged race car. But as predicted, totally unpredictable, the longest race in the history of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, the biggest paying race, and it went all the way to the end. I mean, the last few feet coming to the finish.
The only thing that you can predict about these modified races at New Hampshire Motor Speedway is that they will be unpredictable. That was unbelievable. It was a great run, a phenomenal finish. 248 laps later, the front four are right together under a blanket, and it comes down to those guys, and the guy sitting in fourth going into turn number 3 on the last lap wins the thing in his first career win. What a performance.
Yeah, and unbelievable, as Chase Dowling had to kind of throw the block himself coming down to the finish line to hold off Patrick Emmerling, who really had a head of steam coming out of turn 4. And one of the more disappointed guys is, of course, Ryan Preece, who sits on the wall down there at the bottom of the racetrack just past the start-finish line, looking over that wrecked number 77. But again, because he finished on the lead lap, NASCAR Timing and Scoring has him in a fifth-place finish as we wait for Chase Dowling. He's out of the car, ladies and gentlemen. He can hear you down in Victory Lane. Chase Dowling picks up his first and the biggest here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
Live from Victory Lane, it is so fitting the winner of this race is a Musket, because that 250 laps was certainly a battle of attrition in this, the longest modified race in the series history. Getting hugs here with the race winner, Chase Dowling wins this unbelievable race. Chase, let's talk about this with the fans. First and foremost, how are you feeling? Congratulations.
That was a crazy race. I got to thank all you guys for coming out for this Saturday. It was a crazy race, long, obviously 250 laps. We had some green flag pit stops there, so that was pretty neat, and definitely a lot of excitement there at the end.
So talk us through those last couple of laps, because I think most of us were watching some other numbers that were leading this thing, then all of a sudden you come across the finish. What happened out there?
Yeah, I wanted to be leading at the end, but it's really hard when the first two cars are battling like that, and you can't really just pull out a line and think you're going to pass both of them. So I was kind of not really where I wanted to be in the backstretch there, and I saw Ryan go all the way to the bottom. I said, that's not going to work down there, and I saw Patrick go up top, so I just said, I just stick to the bottom. So.
Such an outstanding race. This was like a who's who and an all-star of the number of faces and numbers that were leading this thing. How do you feel after 250 laps? You've never done something like that before.
Luckily, it was cool out today.
had a Gatorade bottle in there, but it was good. I go another 250 at this moment right now.
That's the spirit. Talk about winning this 250-lap race. Let's bring in the general manager of New Hampshire Motor Speedway, David McGrath, to make the presentation of our trophy for the Musket 250. David, take it away.
Chase, congratulations on a great race. Let's get some hardware handed out for this. What a fine finish. That was so much fun. Hope the fans enjoyed every second of that. All right, here we go.
Chase Dowling taking his position as the winner of the inaugural Musket 250. Congratulations to Chase Dowling. An incredible race, a wild finish, yet another one for the history books for this modified series. That's the story from Victory Lane. Thank you, New Hampshire Motor Speedway. What a race. What a night.
Thank you, Scott. And some of the guys that we watched up front all afternoon long are with Joe Koss. Joe?
Yeah, the guy who came home in the third spot today, Burt Myers. What a show. What did you see on that final lap headed down the backstretch?
It was hard to say. There were some lap down cars in between us, and all I could see was the 77 car and I guess the 51. I saw dust fly up, and at that point you just kind of check up and go for the hole. And this is the most fun I've ever had to race car. I thought Bristol was fun, but this drafting and the way you have to race this track and race the other cars, and man, I could do this every weekend.
Well, we'd love to have you. Congratulations on a great run.
Yeah, thanks. I want to thank New Hampshire for putting this on, and Whelen, and everybody that made this possible for us.
All right, that's Burt Myers. He came home third today, the guy that finished in the fourth spot. How about it? Hampstead, New Hampshire driver Andy Seiss. I know this racetrack hasn't been kind to you today, but you had a really good run to come home in fourth.
Yeah, you know, the guys did a great job yesterday in practice, ended up second quick and qualified sixth. And we ran in the top 5 all day. Just got caught with that fuel strategy a lap down and didn't get back on the lead lap till about 12 to go there. So, you know, overall the car was great just to stay, hold our position, 1 lap down to where we finally could get the lucky dog. So I got to thank Brian Doza and his OB Builders, Brother-in-Law Motorsports, Dunleavy Truck and Trailer Repaired, Jim and Carlton Verge for coming on, Race Electronics, Leaf Raceway, Rockingham Boat, everybody. And, you know, absolutely New Hampshire Motor Speedway, NASCAR, Whelen for putting this on, and these great New England fans. I'm so happy that NASCAR is still living at New Hampshire Motor Speedway in the fall, and I think it was amazing. They did a great job with the midway in the races, and I hope the word spread and they pack this place next year, because I've had a blast all weekend.
All right, that's Andy Seiss, fourth place finish here today at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. He's certainly one of the hometown favorites from Hampstead, New Hampshire. Love to see if we can catch up with the guys that were up front all day, Ryan Priest and Justin Bonsignor. They have not yet made it back to the garage area for comments, so we'll send it back upstairs to Pete and Andy.
All right, well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, we'll run down that finishing order for you. Chase Dowling, of course, the winner, and continues to celebrate in Sunoco Victory Lane. Patrick Emmerling for second, as we heard from Burt Myers in third and Andy Seiss in fourth. Ryan Priest limped across the finish line because by virtue of being on the lead lap, finishes in the fifth spot, and Justin Bonsignor, who he tangled with coming to the finish, will finish sixth. Doug Kobe seventh in the number 2. Then John McKennedy, Eric Goodale, and Ron Silk run out the top 10. Here's Joe again.
With Ryan Priest, who's making his way back to the hauler. Ryan, in position to win when they came across for the white flag. What happened in the final lap?
New Hampshire just trying to win. To be honest with you, just ended up getting the big run, pulled down, saw grass, checked out, and then saw a hole and ended up on his left rear nerf bar trying to get off it. You can't get off, so not the way I wanted to end, and I'm sure it's not the way he wanted to end, but at the end of the day, is what it is.
All right, that's Ryan Priest. Had a valiant effort here today. It was a dramatic finish. He was part of it, ended up coming home out of the win, but certainly a very dramatic finish there on the final lap, headed down into turns 3 and 4.
Some of the rest of the finishing order, some of those cars that finished 2 laps down include 11th place for Rob Summers, 12th for Anthony Nocella, 13th to Dave Sapienza, 14th to Woody Pitcat. Pitcat was the first car 3 laps down. Tommy Catalano in 15th. Jamie Tomeno in the 16th spot. Craig Lutz 17th. Timmy Salamito 18th. Dave Salzarulo finishes 19th. Chris Patriak was 20th. Blake Barney involved in that accident up there in the first turn, 21st. Bobby Santos going out with mechanical problems on the number 44 will be credited with a 22nd place finish. Wade Cole 23rd, Ken Heggie 24th, Melissa Fifield 25th, Ronnie Williams 26th, Gary McDonald 27th, Todd Cooper 28th. Jeff Rocco, Matt Swanson, and Calvin Carroll finish 29th, 30th, and 31st. They were involved in that very early accident up there in the second turn that took them out of the running of the Musket 250. Of course, the excitement continues because we've got big doings in the infield in the fan zone. That post-race party getting underway. They're opening a gate over on the backstretch. If you want to get, if you're parked up in that way and want to get down to join the party, or get down there for the post-race party going on until 11 o'clock tonight. Live music with the Rory Scott Band. They're playing till 10. The beer garden, lawn games, carnival rides, kids activities. You see they're all ready to have some fun with you down in the fan zone, which for this event is